Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another Kraken Conversation long form episode with Beyond Top Secret Texan. And I have to say, every single time that he comes on, he drops so much truth, so much knowledge. Again, whether you agree with him or not, it's always fantastic to gain a perspective from a former secret space program individual. And it's incredible to see the type of information that he's been revealing as we outlined prior to this conversation. So, sir, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you all very much. Namaste and shalom. The pleasure and the privilege is all mine. I'm very appreciative of being invited onto your great program. Your channel is doing incredible work, and I am very proud to be a part of it and having to be a return guest, having been on your program multiple times in the past. Exactly, like it's been too long, and I've been looking forward to being back, invited back on it as a special guest and delivering some information about the things that are going on recently, major events that have been going on, and since last we spoke. And so
again, just
exactly, I will immediately ask you what has been happening since last we spoke. Exopolitics, galaxy shifting. Let's get into it.
Well, the most major thing that has happened is the Jupiter Accord and the I guess you call it the fulfillment, the culmination of the Jupiter Accord, and it's I guess you call it signing. We call it like a signing of a peace treaty, because that's what it was. It was a peace treaty in the highest sense between the Orion Draco and the Ashtar High Command.
And I imagine they didn't use a pen to sign a piece of paper, right? What kind of agreement do they get into? Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't as literal as a signing. This was, of course, after the years, what we would call years of solar years of negotiations and diplomacy amongst highest of the elite Orion Draco bloodlines. The culmination of their civil war was the ultimate, holding of it.
Sorry, brother, just to clarify for the audience, the Orion Draco treaty or alignment, if you will, with humans, is that referring to the 1954 Greada Treaty with Eisenhower and onward?
Not necessarily. We're talking about something even larger than that. We're talking about a treaty between the Orion Draco and the Ashtar High Command and the Galactic Federation of Light. Human beings being, we'll get to that, just an element, like a piece of the treaty itself, a natural resource, if you were, that was surrendered or won by the victorious Ashtar High Command. This is a peace treaty between the two extraterrestrials, the Ashtar High Command being in many senses the invader, and the Orion Draco being the defeated former ruler of the solar internal, I guess you call it the three-sphere Dominion Blue Sphere Alliance, the Earth, Mars, and Venus, into the proximity of the sun, right? That kind of area, that belt. Those heavenly bodies have, were the battlegrounds of the ancient wars between the Ashtar High Command when they liberated Earth. But, since then, they've been at war. Since then, the Orion Draco have been at war with the Ashtar High Command. A Cold War, not necessarily always a hot war, but that was the de facto state of their relationship. Now this peace treaty has been signed. The implications are enormous. But yes, the Ashtar High Command have already signed, officially
Sorry, can you put a rough date on when the Jupiter Accords were signed, roughly? In the last year, last couple of years?
In our timeline in August of this year.
Okay.
As around August, and then, but that's if you wanted to put an approximate date on our calendar, it'd be around August, late August. But at the same time, it's impossible. It's an approximation. It's. Have you ever seen Interstellar? It's the same thing. If you're in outer space.
Right. Time doesn't really go the same linear way for them.
Time's a construct. Everyone knows that. I say, but if our calendar, if you had to circle a month, it would be around August of this year, of this calendar year, just immediately was finalized and everything. But the Orion
what has
Draco,
that? What has that led to since then?
So, I'll get into everything. The Orion Draco, having been signed over and officially recognized as defeated, have surrendered all their territories in the solar system and are choosing to colonize a new solar system that has been given to them by the Galactic Federation of Light as a type of benevolent consideration because of their positive karmic stance. They're not going to exterminate or genocide the Orion Draco. To get them to admit defeat, they had to basically provide them a new solar system, a new homeworld. Right. So the majority of the Orion Draco, and I mean the majority of them, are going to exit the solar system, which they were previously locked in due to the many different layers of shields, kind of like a matrix of prison, like, you know, like fencing or gates around the solar system, which basically corralled the Orion Draco fleets, you know, preventing them from actually being enormous genocidal, you know, threats to the solar system in the last few thousand years. Those are being removed. There is no need for them. The Orion Draco and the Notwaffen and Dark Fleet, most of the Dark Fleet, are going to be leaving as well and escorting them and colonizing this new solar system. And they're doing so on peaceful terms, having surrendered most of their manufacturing and colonies and bases, former imperial, real estate, to the Earth Alliance and to the Ashtar High Command's various, you know, other species and races that make up its very Federation-esque.
Could this largely, sorry to interrupt you, but could this largely connect to why we see, whether they're human manned or ET manned or what have you, the craft all over the world are getting closer and closer to people's, you know, suburban homes, people's things like that? Is that having to do with the preparation in accordance with this accord as the Orion Dracos leave the solar system?
Yes, and that's a further aspect into it too. You kind of look like Russian nesting dolls, where there's this overarching, like, 30,000 foot view elevation of it, where you see the big picture. And as you get into a more microscopic picture of it, you start getting down to earth and you start getting down to the low levels of disclosure, etc. Now, the issue, like I said, is that they're no longer hiding. There's no longer a need for these. And some species have no regard for stealth. And most species do act invisibly. Some species, like the Insectilians, will fly over a neighborhood and not have any doubt because they have no self-awareness. They operate basically like robots. And it's like the idea of Greys, though, operate in pure secrecy because they have a very paranoid mindset naturally. And just being visible or being distinguished as, you know, if they have self-awareness, they're hyper paranoid. They're hyper security minded and focused. And there's this variance and spectrum between alien species that some will just walk around like aliens and not have any concern, and others will go through great lengths to disguise their presence and to conceal their existence in ways that are not even obvious. Like, and it's you know, that's their survival strategy. But right. Anyway,
well, so my question even immediately is, you know, okay, the Orion Draco on the way out, I guess we'll say. But does that, okay, sure, they're going somewhere else. Sure, they're not Notwaffen going somewhere else. But that changes the entire hierarchy. I get hierarchy. Yeah, I like that best. Of our own solar system, does it not, right?
So this is specifically about our solar system.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yes, that the hierarchy is now fully Ashtar High Command. The Ashtar High Command is going to now extend its efforts away from not only the Earth, but into Jupiter and Saturn and the various intelligent races that were already at war with the Orion Draco are now liberated from that war.
Right.
There's a thing called the Pax Ashtar, peace of the Ashtar, which is there is literally a solar system-wide peace. At least when it comes to
think that helps humanity or
incredibly helps humanity.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, now here's the thing with the help and hurt. For the peak, because when it comes down to the microscopic and everything, there are a lot of, it's like okay, we'll get down to the Earth, but let's talk about this higher thing. It will help humanity. There's always this mission to help humanity to achieve an ascendancy for every single human being to be incarnated into their best possible existence. But human nature needs to be corrected. And people are seeing that as a negative thing, but it's the best thing for us. And I know that that phrase itself is very, I don't know, it's viewed with a lot of suspicion because of the negative entities that have brainwashed most of humanity already. So to free us from the evil parasite may see the destruction of all we know. But that was ultimately the plan because we've been born into bondage. They're going to burn down the plantation. And you're like, is that for the betterment of the slaves? Yes, even though you're burning down everything they've ever known and breaking their chains. And then they look at you and they say, what the hell, man? Like that's where my master sleeps. Like, you just burned down his house, you evil son of a bitch. And you're like, you don't get it, but your kids will. When your kids are born free, when your children are born free. But ever since then, you may not even, they say, when you free a man, he may not even leave his prison cell because that's all he's known. And there's this, absolute, like I said, we'll get down to the Artemis Treaty, which is the Earth, which is the actual treaty that was signed amongst the Earth Alliance, etc. The solar warden on the way down, though, is exactly, we had to go all the way down, and it affects the breakaway civilization. Another thing you have to realize is that humanity no longer has its center of gravity, as you would call it, on Earth. It's outward. And we are in a zoo. This is the zoo world.
Right.
We are no more the center of the human species as the moon colony is the center of Earth. We are no more the center of the universe as we were in the 1300s in Italy, when people thought we literally were the center of the universe. That people need to reshift their focus and think that Earth is being saved. Like I said, hundreds of millions of people already are off-world and have they live their entire lives off-world.
Well, my immediate,
there are billions
not to be contrarian, I guess, but you've kind of made this saving of humanity, it seems to be centered on humanity. So why, like, what is the pivotal character of the story? It's not humanity, you mean?
To get the people out of the zoo is going to be the Great Awakening. Now, I said the idea of Earth being like this center of where it's like where it is the forward leader of progress is absolutely backwards. That the forward leading of humanity's progress is actually going to be a part of the Great Awakening. It has to disclose itself.
So we're not center of our worldview anymore, but more like joining the real worldview.
Yes. That we are not the masters of our destiny. As much as we want to think that disclosure is important to us, at some point, it's like you have to teach a child to read. And if that child doesn't want to read, he's going to be like, what's so good about reading? And you're like, I can't explain the importance of literacy to you, but trust me, your decision to do this is very contrary to the progress that's being made in society. Like, like you can be like, I want to be illiterate. And you're like, no matter how passionately you feel about that, that is not the correct way. And many people outside your existence are literate. They already are. And you can say, whatever you want about mankind and skepticism and everything, but to prove a man that his world is not the center of the universe,
right?
That's a Herculean task.
Now, and this all has to do again with the Jupiter Accords and the Orion Dracos on their way out, and then that whole, I guess you could say, procurement of humanity on Earth is now, we're sort of slowly factoring into the rest of the livable galaxy. I guess you could say political spectrum, if you want to call it.
Yes, that they're going to start taking the steps to create the disclosure that's been kept by the secret societies, the cabals, that those cabals are being purged, their bunkers are being raided, their adrenochrome factories are being taken out. They've already arrested on the intergalactic level the tall gray leaders. I think there were 9 officially in the Council of Nine, the tall gray leaders who actually were the ones who made the Greada Treaty with Eisenhower. I said, we'll get back to the Greada Treaty. That was created by 9 tall grays who wanted to create a trade agreement with a undeveloped race that didn't even understand the implications of it, to harvest biological material. Like I told you, they made the 0.003 rule. They could take 0.003 of a population, and that turns out to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Right. Because they encouraged the population to blow up into billions. They made us hyper fertile and everything, like through our food and genetic engineering. But the point is, they've arrested many criminal elements, war criminals, human rights abusers, other intelligent rights abusers, other species rights abusers, across, and it's now more of like a gang war. It's a mob war. It's a war.
Now, sorry, brother, I don't mean to interrupt your stream of thought. Just when you say arrest, just to clarify for ourselves and the audience, is it arrest in the sense of they're delegated to a particular, say, a squadron of or quadrant of the galaxy, or of a certain galaxy, if you will, or a certain star system?
They may be executed depending on the severity of their crimes. That's what I was saying about the.
Right.
It's no longer a state of open war. There are allied races with criminal elements in them, like the Greys. The Greys are a member race of the Ashtar High Command. They were at war with the Orion Draco, and thus provided a lot of security with that. You know, they were allies with the Ashtar High Command. We could not touch the criminals that they had, that people who were preying on human beings, abducting them like cattle, you know, performing these illegal organ harvests on all intelligent life.
Right.
Until now, the war is over without the need to have Greys as military allies. And not only that, the Greys helped us arrest these evil Greys. And I know by we arrest, think of it like a galactic Interpol. Like that's saying it requires fleets of spaceships. These Greys were deep underground in the Earth, in El Dulce and in Area 51. It required a lot of cooperation, both on the human level and on, you know, intelligent life. I know for a fact the Ashtar High Command were responsible for a lot of the raid success deep underground in the bases and in the caverns and in the domes. Without their warriors, it would just be a meat grinder. It would have been, you know, extremely costly in human life.
Now, just curious, brother, relative to the I guess you could say the conflictual speculation about whether or not world leaders like the president of the United States can know about this or not. Would the president of the U.S. know about this? Would the prime minister of Israel know about this? Like, are there any world leaders on the surface of Earth in this timeline right now that would know about what's going on, or only a select few?
Now, not the president that you are speaking about, and no real prime minister or leader that you're speaking about, but the shadow cabals, the leaders of the contingency governments.
So you're talking about the military-industrial complex guys.
Yeah, the people in Mount Weather, the people in Raven Rock, the people who are not disclosed but called Mr. President on the secured lines as they live for 4 years underground in an undisclosed mountainside in case the nuclear apocalypse. The people who really are in charge of NATO and the UN and everything, and also, of course, the human diplomats who live in, you know, the breakaway civilization, their capital and so. So as I said, by now our United States federal company, the United States Incorporated Rockefeller government, is no longer. They just play the part and keep the people happy. They wave the flags, and then Joe Biden goes out and says something, and he's not. This is very clearly Trump wasn't in charge. None of this is all a real leadership. This is all like the movie. It's like West Wing. That's not the real president, even though his name is Mr. President. You know, so
my question to all of that is, so without saying things that'll get us kicked off YouTube, the Depop campaign that seems to maybe be happening right now, right? Where does it is? I've seen very different ways people will say that this is what, like, are they trying to change human DNA so that we can be outside the Van Allen radiation belts? Are they trying to depop people here so that everyone that you, like you said already, everyone in space is what's of the human race? Where does this boobop work into that?
It's actually not that big of a factor. We're actually allowed now to choose our own destinies, and post-human races, I mean, post-future human races, post-humanity, that's going to be either our decision or the fate of nature. And remember, we are natural. There is always a natural process of evolution, natural factors like disaster and everything, but basically our species is beyond that at this point, able to control its destiny with thought and engineering and science and technology.
So is that the cabal trying to stop us from being able to make decisions for ourselves?
I think the cabal is more the people taking advantage of that technology while not giving it to anyone else, or not, like it's the 99% versus 1%. And the cabal has been trying to keep the 1% in control of the 99%. But now we're seeing the equality, the full 100% of society is now all that's keeping it. They don't want to make it a dark age where that 1% is snuffed out like a fire in a candle, and then all that technology is lost, and we go back to a dark age of people being like global Amish. But they want everyone to get that technology. They want people to live for hundreds of years. They want people to never die of preventable illnesses. They want people to be hooked up to global internets, galactic internets, and being able to download entire the world's archives of information. They want a trillion people society. A depopulation is the cabal's evil agenda, but the Ashtar's agenda is to have a trillion people strong humanity.
So before you go on, brother, I just wanted to ask very quickly, think of him what you will, and I'm saying this not to you, I'm saying towards the audience. When Lou Elizondo says that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and he seems to be, as each podcast he does, he seems to be inching closer and closer to exactly what you're saying. He's saying behind the scenes, you have a handful of few that are literally possessing the answers and knowledge that the rest are trying to actually get out, even within the government. I think it seems like interesting that you say this parallel to what he's saying as well. Is there any correlation there, or no? Am I wrong?
Well, it was like Guy Rich said it. And like I said, Louis Elizondo has no novel, and from anyone who knows about ufology, knows about the military industrial complex, knows that these companies that we call the ICC, that are in their human cabal leaders, their secret societies, both have ancient alien technology that they discovered in their occult relic hunting and their archaeology pursuits and everything, and keep it secret. That's what these cult source of power is. I don't know if you ever played like Assassin's Creed and you're like, the Pope's got a holographic thing, and you're like, yeah, it's all about aliens, ancient aliens or something. Like, it's a real thing. These societies have used these technologies for thousands of years to keep power over the normal people, the freemen, the regular people. They were originally, their descendants do come from off-world humanity. That's another thing I was saying, that we need to stop thinking about our civilization as being the center of the universe, is because human beings may not have actually evolved on Earth. We may just be a colony that, kind of was cut off from the rest of humanity. There's a lot of questions about it. There are so many human beings already living off-world.
That's what I mean. So what does the ascension of humanity mean if so many are already off-world?
Well, the ascension of the billions already here. That when they say humanity, they mean that language does not differentiate between colonies. It means everyone has to go together. There can't be anyone left behind. No man left behind. Like that phrase, they mean that. There can't be anyone in the Amazon jungle who isn't a part of this. There can't be anyone in the Middle East who isn't a part of this. There can't be anyone in China that's not a part of this. Everyone's got to be welcome with open arms and made to see the light. And like I said, now the idea of made to see the light, 1,000 points of light, that's what the secret cabal already knows. And they think in their evil ways that they are going to be able to be the only one saved when the time comes. They really want it to be that only like 1% is actually ascended, like Elysium style, and everyone else gets left behind. That fucked up. Like, everyone just lives in garbage and like is dying of cancer, and like robot doctors just give them pills that don't work.
I could see that. I could see that.
They want that. That's the evil cabal. That shit's stopping today. That's getting purged. Those people are being arrested, tribunaled, executed. They're being, either killed on site or are made examples of. The extraterrestrials that have been helping them are being made examples of, being persecuted. Now we're seeing not open warfare between species, but more actions against pirates, poachers, chaos, extortionists and bankers. There's a chaos economy in a world so regulated by AI. They try to cause as much chaos to profit from the loosh that it generates. Excuse me,
right.
the loosh that it generates. Those people, the people who try to, people don't realize, like, wood is more precious than diamond in many places. Wood, because wood trees only grow on Earth.
Yeah. Okay.
So wood is illegally poached by aliens too. Whales are illegally poached by aliens, and that shit is part of the new era of the 21st century, both of mankind and of the Astro High Command. This is what I say. Now we're getting down to the Earth level, but one thing
I did want to ask, sorry, I didn't mean to divert you off where you're going to go, brother, but where does the Artemis Treaty fit into all of this?
As I was saying, the Earth level, the Artemis Treaty level.
Sorry, my apologies. Sorry, please.
To say one more thing about the Jupiter Accord, the other major thing that's going to happen is that the Insectilians are no longer going to invade Earth in mass. And so there's not going to be this extremely difficult phase in human evolution.
When you say Insectilians, just for the audience to clarify, you're talking about the praying mantis type.
The mantids, the insectoids, they have many names.
Now, sorry, are some of them good, or are they simply deceitful? And I ask this because a lot of people who have been abducted that claim to have seen mantid, like a bunch of grays by the table they're on, but then they see a mantid in a robe, but they feel a very warm emotional energy emitting from the mantid. Is that deceit or is that legitimate?
It's actually legitimate. And this is what people don't realize, that because they exist in a hive mind, they have no real fear or emotional duress.
Right.
And what they're trying to do is communicate this sense of, I know it sounds weird, but people have always reported this when they are contacted with hive minds, when they make contact with a hive mind, that there's this overwhelming confidence and like love and support, like, join us, it's awesome. Like it's not like, join us, this is hell, oh, we're suffering, oh,
well, right.
No, it's like,
it almost sounds like
like
the ascension of humanity leads us into a hive mind kind of setting.
No,
okay.
The idea of free will. Human beings don't have a genetic hive mind. We have a free will. We could join one or refuse one. Mostly it's only possible through implants. The internet is a type of hive mind, for example. So are memes.
Absolutely.
One can choose to reject society, though, and also can live a full life. An insectoid off the hive mind literally can't make any decisions. They are dumb. They are literally like robots. And if you take away any programming or any connection from an outside source, usually they're gestalt group consciousness.
They don't have Starship Trooper, yeah.
Not the brain bug. They don't have a true source of intelligence. They have a gestalt consciousness. The more there are together, the better picture they're able to assemble of a world. If they are alone, then they just kind of freeze up and they can't. The less there are, the less able they are to actually work in the world. Like, yes, they could feed themselves, but they literally just be walking around.
So like, they have a true collective consciousness.
Yes. But if you consider a hive with billions of them, or a hive ship with literally trillions of them, they're able to do things like create quantum mechanics, experiment with like light speed travel, dimensional, bending and penetration of different universal, membranes. They're able to do these things together, and they have a very like hive mind mentality. There's no superior ego, there's no conflict, but there's no need for self-preservation.
But prior to the Artemis Treaty, sorry, their intention was to invade, or
that's what I was they were going. Where do they work into the Jupiter Accord? Where do they work into the Artemis Treaty?
Like I said, I believe I spoke about this last time too, that their whole species exists to basically scavenge Orion Draco technology and former like real estate, basically in its quest to get black goo. This AI mindset, this hive mind mindset, decided to basically go to every dimension they could where Orion Draco were dead and extinct, and then take whatever they had left, but they had to previously exist, right? So they're in this pursuit, and they were multi-dimensional, but they evolved on an Earth in their dimension where the Orion Draco wiped themselves out, right? So they have extraterrestrial technology, the Orion Draco technology, 4D, exactly. They are very sophisticated. They don't count them out, but individually they are very, very, very like drone. They are just drones, right? So they don't have like an evil intent. And yes, like the authentic feeling of warmth and welcoming and positivity. I know it's hard to believe because human beings are speciest, but a mantid is an actual benevolent creature, even though it had kind of selfish reasons for interacting in our reality. And that was to get the Orion Draco left behind. Upon being here, it's trying to coexist with us and learn as much about us in its own way, just like we would it. And we have collected samples of them, bodies of them, done autopsies, interrogation.
So in your opinion, brother, would you say that, if, for example, what would you say to someone, because there are some people in our audience that have meditated or they've gone into certain, you know, spiritual states, if you will, and they have encountered in whether in the, you know, in what they claim to be their astral bodies or through meditation, or they've been visited, you know, telepathically by a mantid. Would you say to sort of, would you recommend our audience deters them, or would you say to just embrace the experience?
Well, it depends on the encounter itself, but I have been visited by a mantid multiple times. They were representatives of the Ashtar High Command. They are a member race of the Ashtar High Command still, currently. Now, what I was going to say is that they were going to, quote unquote, invade by literally unwelcomed and uninvited, trespass into what our dominion was, our territory, basically just show up in the billions and start mining and start digging up Orion Draco cities, in, like, you know, around the world, the different monuments and everything, and start just basically helping themselves to our home world. Because, like I said, there's trillions and trillions of, they're numberless, right? There's trillion, and they're already on the momentum and the pathway to this. So what they've done, because the Jupiter Accord, the Orion Draco have left the solar system. There's moons of Jupiter in the dozens, with Orion Draco empire cities, bases, technologies, spaceports.
And those are things for them to scavenge, right?
Yes. Yes, connecting the dot. Now the Insectilians can go to these planets and these moons of Saturn, Jupiter, the asteroid belt in between Mars and Jupiter, all the ancient space stations and relics that the Orion Draco reptilians have already surrendered can be fed, basically, to the Insectilians, and they don't have to park themselves in like the middle of Africa, you know, and just start doing District 9, you know, in real life, which is a predictive programming for this event, that there would be ships just showing up with millions of these Insectilians who don't even know like their own names. And until they all showed up, they were basically just waiting, like their vanguards, just to see if we would shoot them or not. They would send in billions and billions of Insectilians. Just to, that's like they were studying us like we would study them. They had no intention of they don't fear us, but they were just, you know, they were going to be ready for anything. They weren't going to come bearing the sword, but they were going to bear a shovel and a pickaxe and say basically what is our
how advanced technologically, brother, are they compared to, say, certain factions of the Greys, compared to, you know, the as the Etherians or the Nordics, the human looking species? How far along are they?
They're not the most advanced race, but they're up there. I mean, they are sufficiently advanced to create faster than light travel. They have, you know, everything that we would ever be able to invent. They're more advanced than us currently, but at the same time, individually, they're not like people who, for example, have as much personal luxury technology. As a species, extremely technologically advanced. Individually, not really. Like they're not going to come out with, yes, the mantids you see are, they have the teleporters, they're in control, but they operate just like we do as a species. They operate just like many intelligent species do, which is, you know, using their own two hands, using their two claws. Like they don't have exactly like fully automated societies where they can project their will with AI and drones and robotic servitors and they're not like that. Like they can't, bend space and time individually. Each one of them is this, engineer supreme. No, it's each one of them lives in a society that is capable of space flight. They live in a society that's capable of nuclear fusion. They live in a society capable, they can specialize in that, and so it depends on which one you encounter, but they're just like us. They're just like anyone else.
Got you.
Yeah. Like they have their own specialized caste systems because they're Insectilians. They have their warriors, their pilots, their engineers, their doctors, etc. But that we can save that to their xenobiology in the second hour.
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted. What I wanted to ask. Did you want to anything else you wanted to touch on, or did you want to?
Artemis. Yeah. All right, so yeah, the Artemis Treaty. Also, Solar Warden is going to get a lot more extraterrestrials and ultra-terrestrials in its fleet.
The Solar Warden fleet, you're saying?
Solar Warden fleet is going to get a lot more ships. It's going to get a lot more staffing. That's basically everyone's already known that and planned for it. Ultra-terrestrials are going to get their own ships,
but not humans. More human, not more humans in it. You mean even other species? You're saying, right?
We are getting more Chinese people. We are getting more Chinese people. The Chinese, like I said, are getting elevated to the level where they're.
That immediately gives me another question, but finish your point.
Well, that they are getting their Black Dragon, they are getting their Jade Dragon fleets up, that they are getting their Golden Dragon fleets up, that they are beginning to provide a larger amount of staffing than any other nation, and that this is going to be kind of like the future. Like I said, we all got to go together. India is going to get ships, and they can supply, millions of people.
Does this have to do with the Chinese, particularly the CCP, of course, because they run China at the moment, trying to push the 5 Bodies initiative at the UN, which has to do with the attempt at global disclosure? That's what that initiative is. It's interesting you say this relative to the timing that this
that's what I was about to get into. Along with their hypersonic, spacecraft that they just launched and publicly tested. I'm more proud of them for having the balls to publicly do it than anything. But is that what's getting into? Are they going to be the face of world disclosure?
Yes, I absolutely do believe that the Chinese have a clean slate. They don't have the secrecy, and thus they're not going to get any kind of like say if America revealed the technology, it's gonna be a lot of questions, a lot of awkward moments where they're like, yeah, sorry for keeping anti-gravity and medbay's secret for the last 75 fucking years. Like no, the Chinese can come out and say it, and we'd be like, damn, those Chinese are clever. Man, how did they invent that anti-gravity? How do they have these hypersonic missiles that can basically fly faster than is physically possible and defy physics? And you're like, how indeed? And exactly, like you can just conveniently, like, I don't speak Chinese, I don't know what they're saying exactly. Like you can just conveniently play off on a world stage. The same thing they're doing with, except the Five Eyes, etc. The Chinese are becoming the new superpower and the face of the future. I know it's ironic because it's so terrifying and brutal, but just like every sci-fi empire in the world, it's terrifying and brutal and repressive and authoritarian. And you see the writing on the wall. You're like, of course it would be the fucking CCP that has like the first official moon base. Of course it would be the CCP that has the first official like Mars, United States allied station. And it'd be like, yeah, but because the Chinese came up with some miracle invention, it will conveniently explain away the fact that this is like going perfectly smooth, and we won't have to address the fact that Americans did it. Yeah, the British did it. Right. The Allies did it. NATO did it.
But the difference is, the Chinese don't have that history of a very murky history, like the Greada Treaty, the cover-ups, all that bullshit. That's what you're saying, essentially.
Yes, and that for example, they really do want to clean the slate, and the Artemis Treaty is this cleaning the slate principle. It is a signature treaty, not only between humanity on the surface, but several intelligent races, many of the ultra-terrestrials, basically all of them. And they have signed a pan-Earth treaty. We're not the only intelligent species that lives on Earth or is from Earth, or, is comparatively a peer species, a brother species. And so not only is it a human species-wide peace treaty, there's not going to be any major wars in the future ever again.
We're not going to hot war over like places like Taiwan, anything like that. These civil wars in Africa, you think going to end that kind of thing? You think? I'm
proxy
asking.
war. Yeah, the theater will keep going on. Like I said, there's these proxy wars. It's like, okay. It's just for the news. It's just for the plebeians. It's just for, you got to sell the papers, right? And a lot of it isn't like you think. You think that Taiwan is this, like I said, yeah, huge battleground. And really, it's just like the fall of Afghanistan. You think it's going to be this big deal, and it really isn't. It's just kind of like a release of pressure and tension. Like it doesn't really, you realize it doesn't really ever mean anything. And even with the fall of Taiwan, you would be surprised it wouldn't really mean much to the greater plan of things. Like if that was a legitimate war and the Chinese did attack Taiwan, it would not change the fate of the world. Like it just wouldn't. Even like it would be the last real war. It would be you would be right. You would see maybe one last real human war before the Battle of Armageddon, which is, it's not going to happen exactly how they say biblically, but there will be one planned for human resistance movement that cannot be avoided between all the extremists of the world. You're going to see a alliance of religious fundamentalists. You're going to see an alliance of just people who fucking hate aliens and are just like, exactly like internalized. Well, they will fight to the death. It will be an asymmetric war across the world. It will be this one last real bloodbath between the human species, but with extraterrestrial technology, with extraterrestrial aid and help and AI, and it's going to be one-sided as fuck. And that, yes, there's going to be so many people dead that cities are going to be destroyed in America, and there will no longer be a United States. There will no longer be a China. There will no longer be India or Russia. It'll be one world government. It'll be necessary to create this because there was one world revolution.
Exactly. I mean, and this is actually what I hope for. Absolutely. Kind of an ideological one world government where we accept that we are all humans and face outwardly to space. But you don't think there's any kind of a way that they could be a subversion of the people in power just get to shift where the power lies? Of course, another question before you even answer that one. We kind of think the Chinese took these hypersonic spacecraft. We kind of think they took them from a SolarWinds hack that they were in the U.S. and kind of like took our R&D and then went public with it. Are we going to copy our own homework in America and like say, oh, they're doing this now, we can go public with it? Or is America just going to let China?
Well, I wonder if that SolarWinds hack is what you were saying, Mike, as what you were saying as it pertains to the surface narrative of things,
right?
Like the SolarWinds hack on the total bullshit, but on the surface, that's the excuse they'll use to shift things over to China, like you were saying.
Oh, I know exactly what you're referring to. The AI network that's going to be installed in the world. So with one world nation, you need one world internet. You need one world internet that's secure. And you need
Skylink,
secure
I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to need an off-planet internet. And yes, with everything happening, it'll be one of the many puzzle pieces. But yes, the one world government is going to be because of a one world internet, which is going to basically serve and provide everyone's privacy needs with an AI that is unhackable, that is better than any hacker ever live, right? Better than human possibility. And
but will the one world government be like, I guess because of one world internet, we can communicate so freely that we will.
The issue will be it'll be a transformative one where no longer we're going to be like, oh, well, we got to compete in an arms race with China, or we got to disclose our technology. It'll be
compete in an idea race, I guess, now with every other human together.
Yes, it'll be the idea of the race itself being obsolete. No longer is it a race against individuals, it's a race together. So all ideas become open source. And you'll see things like 12-year-old kid invents anti-gravity. And you'll see fake stories like that to kind of build this promotional propaganda story where how because of this instant universal translation, that there's no miscommunication anymore, that there's no foreign languages anymore, there's no foreigners, we're all this family now and can communicate freely. We will, as I said, the ascendancy will change the mindset, will change the hearts and minds of the world. No longer will you see someone as a foreigner or as an enemy.
No,
or
you'll
that
see them as a fellow human. Absolutely. I'm right there with you.
Like they might not even speak English or Chinese in 50 years. They may convert to a type of digital universal,
like a Star Wars basic language. Not that it will sound like English, but that same kind of
exactly.
Yeah.
That they don't explain like in Star Trek how like it's just a universal translator. You know, like that's right. Like it's not. People aren't just sitting there speaking English. Like they're speaking whatever language they need to hear.
Right.
And that's like that's been a thing in sci-fi since this began. We've, like I said, the secret society's known that
kind of like I point to a Tower of Babel a lot. The actual Bible says humans understood each other, and then when the Tower of Babel fell, everyone spoke different tongues. So like that's not saying everyone spoke the same language. It's just saying they understood.
Understood. You could pick up a phone and talk to an Eskimo, and it would sound like English in your head, and to them it would sound like Aleutian Islander in their specific dialect, and there would be no mistranslation or any study necessary for you. So there would be no fear or intimidation anymore, because you wouldn't think that they're keeping secrets or plotting. I'm not saying like the idea that you could have it implanted in your own ear and it'll be like a babble fish from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where if anyone spoke to you, you understood what they're saying.
Right. No, okay. I get, yeah, absolutely.
Like most wars were started previously because societies and cultures did not speak a common language.
So they had no idea what absolutely. I agree.
All espionage and intelligence, spycraft, etc., is to deal with culture and language barriers and thus break them down. And that will no longer be exactly the central focus between mankind. Cloak and dagger, deep espionage, spycraft.
Right. Like we said earlier, an idea race, not an arms race.
Exactly. Another thing is the ultra-terrestrial conflicts with humanity. The ultra-terrestrial conflicts with humanity are going to be a little weirder. I think that their Artemis Treaty is going to be the most difficult to maintain. The Jupiter Accord is going to be successful.
Okay, well, now I immediately have to ask you why. Why do you think the Artemis Treaty will be hard to maintain?
Because the oceanic human beings, or the oceanic humanoids, the oceanic intelligent life.
You're talking like Pacific Islanders?
Like sirens and
okay. Yes.
The aquatic apes, the aquatic humans, the aquatic divergence of Homo sapiens, for lack of a better word, the mermaids.
Well, yeah, I think there's loads of different names in all cultures for them, but exactly. Yeah.
For lack of a better word, the mermaids. That is a real thing. They exist in the billions. They exist on the seafloor, and they have advanced and sufficiently advanced technologies. They operate with a human psychology, meaning they're extremely territorial. And because of their diet and their culture, they've basically promoted a lot of aggression, and they're extremely competitive. The ocean pollution is going fucking nuts. Now, extraterrestrials are offering to clean it, but the thing is, we caused it, so it's our responsibility to do it. Now, this is something that people, how to think that because it starts from space and it starts in the ultra dimensional, higher dimensional level, how it comes down to our 3D reality. Well, the mermaids are not advanced enough to have spaceships or anything, but they exist sufficiently advanced to kick our asses when it comes to
these submersible underwater people are not part of our solar warden, but they are becoming a part of the ascension of the human race, maybe.
Yes, like I said, they are becoming a part of it. More ultra-terrestrials are going to be recruited to solar warden, given this technology as well in their own regards, their own respects, as well as staffing and becoming the members of the fleet of Solar Warden as it expands. Each one gets a representative ship and sample, and everything gets to be a part of it. A good way to think of it mentally, I know this sounds fucking ridiculous. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
When fucking at the first one, those guys in blue, and it's like all these different aliens and people, and they're fucking like trying to save the world or whatever from the ship. That's how they work. It's gonna be literally like fucking the Federation. This pan utopia where you're going to see a ship and they're going to be like the Mon Calamari, being the pilots, and you're like, that's not a human, and you're like, yeah, it's not a racist system. We let, Yeti, we let mermen, we let troglodyte cave people from Hollow Earth, etc., Mayan, Aztec. We're going to try to have these ships full of ultra-terrestrials, right? And be a representation for this this Earth alliance, and that's what true meaning is. It's an Earth alliance. Now, the mermen, like I said, highly competitive, not as advanced as we are when it comes to things, but more advanced than we are when it comes to many other things, like surviving in the ocean, of course, and like, traveling and fighting in the ocean. It's not like they're going to invade the land, but because we pollute so much and we're killing the fish stocks and we're affecting the ecosystem so much, that they actually might either develop terrorist organizations. A leader may arise, a separatist leader, and that the Artemis Accord's greatest threat may come from these oceanic people.
Now, just curious, brother, before you go on, the pollution on the surface relative to that of the physical distance to the bottom of the ocean, is there a tipping point for these subaquatic species for them to say, okay, like, listen, we know that you started it, but you caused it, you do have to clean it up and all that stuff, but at the same time, you're really affecting our livelihood down here? Or is that not even close to a point of possible like fruition yet?
They've already crossed it. If it wasn't for the Artemis Accord being signed, and like I said, the Artemis Treaty was signed with the Astra High Command, and there literally is a gun pointed to the Earth, and it's called Solar Warden. I said, like, the fact that the mermen have not attacked us yet is because we would destroy them, and we've nuked many of their cities before because the tipping point was already reached about 100, maybe 200 years ago. With mankind's whaling industries, they've taken down thousands of ships. They've taken down ships in continuum, and they have not stopped, and we've not been able to prevent them. Whenever you hear about a ship disappearing, think of these mermen as maybe a possible suspect.
So when we see, for example, very recently, like, in the South China Sea, that submarine there, could this be sort of like a tit for tat sort of chess game, if you will? They like, we, for example, Solar Warden tries to put them in their place, and then they sort of give a little bit of they poke the bear back metaphorically by going for something like the submarine.
And remember, they're different nations, etc. They expand around the globe, and there's 75% of the Earth's surface is ocean. They have a larger population. They have a larger society than we do geographically. They're not one united empire of mermen. They are different subspecies and tribes. They don't communicate like we do. We don't communicate with other human beings very well. So it's like you travel into South China Sea, that tribe might decide to take down any human being that travels near it, taking down freighter ships, oil tankers, luxury liners. It doesn't matter, right? And then you have a situation there. They also are nomadic. It's not like you think where they live in coral. Like, some do have domiciles in cities that look like towers made of coral, but from what I gather, a lot of them are just nomadic, and they travel in these huge migratory patterns. So that's whenever they do encounter, say, a fishing trawler from a Chinese illegal fishing fleet, they might sink it and kill everyone on board, just as a matter of principle. Like you would, it's like dealing with Native Americans.
Right. Do they have craft that can operate within the subterranean?
Okay, and they themselves have technology now. It's not like you see many times the mermen, like you see Greys just being naked and having no tech. Like, that's a suit, and that is they have organic technology. They've been able to craft and breed corals. They use shells. It's as much biological technology as it is actual craft, like woven seaweed for clothing.
Would you say they have zero? Would you say they have 0-point tech or anti-gravity tech?
I have heard that they have technology of vessels that can travel jet speed in water, but mankind has that too. There's a type of convocation where you create a bubble in front of you, and that's done with acoustics. Now, they also have been reported, for example, in these spherical bubbles just standing and traveling extremely fast around deep sea divers.
You're referring to a humanoid structure, sort of glittering, seen inside of what appears to be like a bubble type apparatus.
that they pilot these
Right.
things. Now, to say that's a physical vessel or something it can create, maybe with psionics, maybe with acoustics. I know there's, for example, there's hard acoustics where it's a type of sound that acts like a physical barrier. It has a physical force enough to levitate and to force out things. See, the technology is very mysterious. I'm not a what you would call an expert when it comes to everything in their armory or I do know that they're sufficiently advanced to defeat us in a naval engagement or to hold us at their mercy when it comes to any of our naval or marine ventures. We are at their mercy. Same thing as a pioneer settler is at the mercy of the Apache Indians, regardless if they think they're safe or not. The Apache just are exactly, they are the masters of that domain. Now, the problem with this though is that even though they were included in the Artemis Treaty, this is a possibility. They might be provoked. They might be one of those people who gather that technology and then use it against us later at a date. As soon as they're given solar warp technology, then they begin to become separatists, and then they may face their own genocide. But at the same time, that would be the breaking of this Earth Alliance peace treaty, or this Artemis Treaty, Earth Alliance funded peace treaty. That's just speculation. That's one of the things.
It would be reneging on this Artemis Treaty, like after the fact of getting to benefit from it. You mean
the classic? You sell someone a fur for a gun, then you shoot them with the gun and take the fur and your money back. It's the classic human nature pull, and that's it. Like they're not as advanced as we are, and they're extremely violent and competitive, as been proven previously in the past. Like I said, it's not going to be. It might be a civil war between them, but it will be something where the seas might become no man's land. That we might have the mainland attacked by an extremely technologically advanced rival human subspecies. And that's what I'm saying. Like it's a sufficiently major ordeal that I know I am foreseeing a possibility of in the future that is more 50-50 than it should be. And I was like, that's more of like say when I think the human computer inside my skull that when it starts calculating the odds and everything, the one thing I'm seeing is not like say Sasquatch or the Yeti or any of the Hollow Earth people or even the Aztec Maya, which have been at war with the Earth Alliance for the last 20 years plus. They've always been hostile, but even now they're signing the peace treaty. So they have more order in their society to keep that peace.
Sorry, brother, the Aztec Maya, what do they look like from a physical appearance in this dimension?
They are extremely physically fit human beings, much larger in stature than we are.
Genetically
human. They're just human beings, and they look not so much Latin American as they do Indo-Aryan and kind of Asiatic. And they're not like little Guatemalans. They're not like little Mayans that we think we associate with them. They are actually like gigantic. Usually, their hair is in these tight braids, but they are extremely. They have a lot of physical prowess, but they're human beings. They have 5 fingers, 2 arms, 2 legs. Exactly, like they are human beings. They just have a greater health, and the Hollow Earth has more nutrition in its diet, and they are bred to be as large as possible. They like over 7 feet. Over 7 feet, average, over 7 feet. Just like 6 foot tall is the size of a large man, 7 to 8 foot tall, proportional, athletic, not suffering for the gigantism or anything. They are, in peak physical shape as well. I've never seen a more muscular human being. And I mean I have never seen a more muscular human being than the Aztec Mayans that I've seen. And yes, they were warriors, and not everyone is, exactly made for that. But
they're a warrior. They broke warrior away. Race, I guess. Still, you mean?
Well, you mean your pinnacle, like of that species. Yes, there are different. Like humans are all different, but I think that's what you meant, right? That what do they look like? What does the best one look like? Like what is the prime example? That would be
these are humans that broke away many thousands of years ago.
Actually, during the encounter with Christopher Columbus, that's when they officiated the migration into the Hollow Earth.
Very interesting. Okay, so so the evidence found prior to Christopher Columbus allegedly discovering North America, as they say, would you say that evidence has been muddied up on the public level nowadays, or on the surface of academia, because there's just on the secretive level, there's just so much knowledge or evidence of these Aztec Mayans being there?
Yes, and the fact that there's constant engagement and conflict with them on the surface is also covered up. And the fact that things like cities are still in almost in pristine condition, and things like the Western world being kept in this information bubble is from our top down. It has like we, and not we, but they, the people, the mainstream society in the West, they don't have a clear picture, regardless of what you think they like history and museums, etc. You see only what they want you to see. And every pyramid that's in ruins and ramshambled and like just a relic of the times and the ancient world, they find pristine tombs that were lived in less than 100 years before they were found. They find these cities that look like they were just abandoned yesterday, because they were. The Mayan Aztec have the ability to simply migrate amongst their old empire. They have 0-point energy technology, and they simply are forced into a diaspora due to the fact that they knew the West. I mean, the East and West divide, right, was going to be just not worth the full like world war that they were going to need to do. They wanted to kind of exist peacefully, not because they wanted to make a peace with the East. They just didn't want to be bothered. They wanted to remain independent and isolationist. They decided to travel into the hollow earth. They already knew the caverns existed. They had the cenotes in Mexico and Central America. They had entrances in the Andes Mountains that were much easier and convenient to reach than their counterparts in the Middle East. But these entrance points are everywhere. They also had sufficient knowledge of the stars and the grid system, the ley line system, etc.
And where are they with respect? Sorry, where are they placed with respects to the Jupiter Accords, the Artemis Treaty, all that type? Are they sort of just going with the flow of things, or?
There was open hostilities for the last, I guess, well over since the Columbus days, where any encounter between the West, what you'd call modern man, and this Mayan Aztec breakaway civilization would end in bloodshed, open hostilities, almost without any regard to diplomacy. This was the case up till this year, because now the Artemis treaties are signed. Like I said, the Aztec High Command does not have to be distracted and can actually start enforcing peace on the Earth. So now the Aztec Mayans are not only fighting human beings, they're fighting other extraterrestrials.
Now, I did want to, I didn't,
excuse me, sorry. Upon seeing this, this only happened this year, like the other extraterrestrials, like the members of the Aztec High Command, the Venusians, Greys, various other intelligent species, are actually from the High Command itself level fighting, colonizing the hollow Earth, exploring it, reinforcing our positions there, our colonies. They see that they can't resist that. This is literally like the play out of the colonization of North America again. They see that it's not just them versus Spain, it's them versus the entire world. Once again, powers that they don't even, they say like they don't equal it. It's so they see it, they have to make a peace. If they're going to survive, they need to make a peace.
Right. Now, speaking of, since we're on the topic of different species and intelligent and beings and all that, very lately, as I'm sure your finger's probably on the pulse more than mine, actually, with respects to the sort of, I don't want to classify this as that, but this sort of black goo type octopus squiggly shape-shifting formation in the sky. What are we looking at there?
Those are Insectilian ships. And yes, this is our second hour, so let's get into the xenobiology of it. And
sure,
that's a good way to start. Those are actually biotechnology. Those are biotechnological ships.
Are they conscious ships? Do you happen to know, or?
Yeah, they're alive. They're a living entity. They themselves are like an animal or a creature. They are tamed and they are domesticated and they're run by the Insectilians internally inside themselves. But instead of a computer, it's actually a brain.
So a very quick example, the film Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, you know, when the blue beings would attach their hair to the dragon.
Yes, like no biotechnology, void whales. That's exactly. That's some ships are alive. Some ships are born and hatched out of eggs and grown in artificial wombs. And they look like spaceships, like metallic, circular, nondescript spaceships, but they're actually living things, biological organisms that have been evolved, and their organs act like engines, and they can generate natural force fields and things. A creature that has evolved to live in space is called a xenomorph. A xenomorph is the official name for it, and the first one was discovered on an Apollo mission. And
holy crap. Okay, so sorry, so hold on before you jump into that, because that's, I'm sure that everyone wants to hear that. Xenomorph with an N and
zero
and no, right, and then xeromorph. What are the differences?
A xenomorph is what was created for the movie Alien, and that just means outsider life, like any life that it's just if you wanted to make another name for extraterrestrial, because extraterrestrial is the synonym for xenomorph.
Got you.
Other kin, star people, these are all synonyms. The language is basically describing something from beyond.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify that for the audience and all that. No, thank you.
And a xeromorph is the same thing. A xeromorph was just the name some scientist in the 60s gave to this thing that was photographed, and it was a giant space squid, basically, to put it very simply. Some Lovecraftian type, chthonic, eldritch cephalopod. And yeah, it opened the doors of perception, because now we know for a fact sky beasts, jellyfish, the ocean, and the outer space that we call space, the void, is not a void. It's like an ocean. It's filled with highly specialized species that drift or actively swim through it. And some of these things are the size of moons and planets. And some of the asteroids and comets we think are just comets are actually living things, like what you would know as like space whales, or even like a giant space sea turtle. And like there are like active predators, and there are filter feeders, and that there's a whole discipline and domain. Yes, xenobiology is what it's called academically. Astrobiology is also what it's called. Like I said, many names for one thing: study of life from outside of the Earth. Now, the difference of being able to exist in the void, or the vacuum of space, as it's popularly called. Like I said, not a vacuum. It's more like a liquid medium. That it's, I'd say, like that. Yes, you have to be extremely specialized, but life did not originate on Earth. Life originated during the beginning of the universe, and there is life literally everywhere, on every moon, on every planet, in every corner.
Well, speaking of the moon, sorry, brother, could you? Because I'm sure the audience wanted to hear before I rudely interrupted the Apollo mission. Apollo, when you said the xeromorphs, the first one was found, at least in modern human history, on an Apollo mission, or?
Yes, let me look it up and see if I can pull it up real fast.
Sure.
So I get the actual Apollo mission. But a xeromorph, yeah, it was actually NASA recognized.
And how many, at least in the way that we perceive time here on Earth, how many years ago would you say roughly, if you had to put a rough?
It was in the 60s. I believe it was 1967. Let me see. Xeromorph Apollo photo. Yeah, this is one of those things. It's like, I wish I had that photo already pulled up. But I'll tell you personally, when I get that information, once again, I've actually posted that story on my Instagram, so it won't be hard to get it. It just, I'm on my phone now. I know it's on my phone.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean to. Sorry. I just wanted to continue with the, yeah.
Now I'm going to be all like, what is it? Because it's on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, absolutely. I know what you're talking about. I'll get you that information, the date and the time and all that. And citation. I'll provide all that citation. Yeah. But
sorry, I appreciate that, even if it's afterwards, just because I'm sure the audience will want to know. But please carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. So the creature that you're seeing with the black tentacles and the morphism is a type of scout ship that can basically teleport on its own. Now, it doesn't do a lot of great flying, but it basically can hover and basically teleport short distances, space to space, or at least dimensionally hop, right? Like go from literally one reality to another. A lot of this travel is dimensional in nature. The Insectilians are not coming from far away. Well, yes, they are, but they're coming from further than you think, but actually closer than you would expect. They're coming from another Earth, an alternative Earth, and they coexist just on a separate plane of reality. They're able to witness us because they can observe us. It's not their first time invading another reality, as to use that word, but this is how they do it. They scout, they watch people with shadow men, they visit them with mantis men, they start indoctrinating and bringing them their minds and the species focus. They gather intelligence, both biological and just reconnaissance.
Do they have any civilizations externally into relative to this reality, like on, so you know how there's the Zeta Reticulans and all that stuff, or is it simply just another reality of the same dimension
of Earth? Many times when you see those ships, they come literally, like when they leave, they just teleport to their reality, but it's in the same geographic vicinity. Right. Like it would be that neighborhood, or that geographic coordinate for that neighborhood, wherever it was spotted.
Like tuning the radio to a certain channel.
And they phase in and phase out.
Got you.
They don't fear being seen, because it's inevitable that they are going to one day just be in the open, exactly, and be there. To us, it seems like this very skittish and like bizarrely brazen UFO invasion, right? Like they're just hovering over houses. They have no regard for stealth, yet they're not here yet. Like if they would show up en masse, because they know they're not superpowered. They know that if that ship was hit by a missile, a Stinger missile, it would be splashed down and taken out. They know, though, that no neighborhood in Chicago has a Stinger missile just hanging out. They know that cities in America are now not guarded, or they have anti-aircraft. See, they send scouts one at a time to see what the reaction is. And yeah, you're seeing the reaction of a person to film it and then to post that online. Many times, if they come over military facilities, they're taken down. If they come over an active war zone, they're taken down. If they come over any security sensitive area, they're taken down. But if they come over, say, like a neighborhood in Philadelphia, then they're being filmed. And then the film gets, and then that gets part of the reconnaissance. They're just seeing human reaction. They're gauging it. They're expendable scouts.
Because it makes sense, because it looks like sometimes they're literally putting on like a show, like they're dancing for the people watching.
And that's been going on for thousands of years, because one of the things with trans-dimensional entrances and exits, time, like I said, doesn't really work the way you think like it does on all like timelines. They have been seen on cave paintings. The first tribes of men used to paint these organic UFOs. Sky beasts have been seen. They used to call them sky beasts, atmospheric beasts. Sky jellyfish have been seen over Russia.
Sort of like multi-tentacle sort of.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sky jellyfish, sky beasts were like written about by like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Can they, just curious, I know this might be a bit of a fundamental question. I'm pretty sure they all can, if I'm not mistaken, but can they turn on and off our nukes or no?
Now, see, that's a weird situation. That's not them doing it. And it's not for the reasons you think. Those nukes are actually fuel for ships. And sometimes what they were doing was simply just taking the warhead out and then returning it in abduction type technology, where they kind of freeze time and they can levitate objects through physical walls. And they would just be literally taking out the warhead to power their nuclear fission reactors in these ships that were, loaned to us. And by us, I mean Solar Warden, by Grays and Astro High Command, specifically to see if this system could work. And yes, that's one of the systems. So if they ever needed fuel, they would go to either a lake or a reservoir, pick up the water that they needed to cool for their cooling rods, and then pick up the actual plutonium, uranium that they needed off-site through these missile silos. No one would be the wiser, no paperwork, They can't.
Would that maybe even be why we did such the stockpiling that we did of nuclear arms? Because obviously we didn't fire any more nukes anywhere. So like, is that maybe why we made, you know, bases with nukes in them all over the place so that people had refueling points?
Yes, absolutely. And it's also one of the reasons why no one was told to shoot any of these UFOs, and no real anti-aircrafts batteries were installed when the government clearly knew this was happening. You know, and everyone down the chain was aware of it, but absolutely no preventative efforts were ever taken to prevent it. And in every single nuclear installation that we had visitors, quote unquote. It's because they were purposely designed and placed to be gas stations, if you were, for UFOs. Yep.
Very interesting.
So the only thing that I can, why is it? I mean, it's the same way, I guess, that there was a video that just came out recently where ship was 100% using our sun and absorbing the energy from it. So is there something more going on than just the need for, like, okay, like I point to Iran and its nuclear arms deal. Is there, we talked about the ascension of the human race. Is there almost a need for nuclear power across the world for the anti-gravity engines?
Not necessarily. The nuclear power that they're using now is more for
electricity. No, I know on the surface level it 100% is.
No, I mean the warheads themselves. Mining. I was trying to find the word for it. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
Like mining / industrial purposes, creating like factories that are powered through nuclear explosions to harvest exotic materials, specifically like quantum diamonds and shit, quantum crystals.
Okay.
Exotic material that is actually only found in the event horizon of a nuclear bomb, in the actual center mass of a nuclear bomb. We made
at the split of the atom, you mean, right?
Yeah. Okay. And that fusion technology is also why they draw energy from the sun, because the sun being basically a big pool of fission, you know, of fission and molten, you know, exotic materials, like I don't know if you know about a star forge or a Dyson sphere.
Yeah.
Cooling the energy of the sun itself provides a credible amount of raw materials, and that's exactly what they use in their operation.
Into the electric universe theory, I'm connecting dots to, or
yes, of course, they higher level advanced physics, electric universe theory is very relevant to it. That is also how, for example, the Ashtar High Command and the Venusians specifically have psychic abilities, because they are literally electric beings and they understand this.
But that would be the point in the human ascension, because we are electric beings as well, just kind of not.
They see that. They see that kinship. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's why they have any sympathy or emotional attachment to the human species itself. Is because they see.
I literally don't know, because I don't know, were Dracos, Orion Dracos, or insectoid mantis, were those aren't electric beings, just to clarify for myself.
Now, the Insectilian beings are not necessarily not electric beings. The Orion Draco, they have, like, yes, everyone's an electric being. Every single entity, including the darker negative being.
Cool. All right.
But the idea is the, I guess you call it the wavelength of electricity. Like everything's light.
Everything that's matter is 100% energy, which makes it all electric, but the wavelengths are different depending on. Okay, cool. I'm with you.
It's not like there's anti-electricity, although there is antimatter. Although there is antimatter. Now, to get to the xenobiology aspect of it, the Orion Draco, their big issue wasn't the fact that they were fundamentally created different from every other species and thus became evil. They're just a hyper-aggressive predator species. They're an apex predator, and thus they can't help their nature. They can't help the way they're made. They rather eat a human being than speak to one, simply because it's exotic.
Just curious, brother, because oh, sorry, go on. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say it's at this point not because they're savage. It's at this point simply because their society allowed itself to become so self-serving.
We animals too.
Exactly. To call them purely evil is a very elementary. Yes, you do need bad guy, good guy references. You need the polarities. You need that compass of, if you're on this side of this line, you are de facto that. But we have, example, reptilian allies currently living on Earth, and they're staying on Earth. I know, like I said, the great majority. Some have been welcomed and accepted, and they currently live mostly in Russia. Like I said, they've distributed across the world.
What's the separating factor? What's the difference?
Like a personal and responsibility and free choice is an intangible ethical component to intelligent life. That you can have a dog, and that dog is a bad dog and it bites people and it just does not want to listen, or you can have a good dog and it's the same, like, alternate version of the same dog, some from the same litter. It's exactly the philosophies that the allied reptilians adopted are in line with the philosophies and the existential promises and like plans of the Astra High Command. And yes, I know you can say from their side, the Astra High Command are evil. Absolutely true. Very relative. This is more of a philosophical thing. This is more of an ethical thing. And at that point, it becomes a intangible metaphysical thing. Like I said, it's not because we're specious. It's not because they're reptilians and they're cold-blooded and thus they're evil. It's not because they're insectilians and insects have no heart and they have no remorse. It's deeper than that. It's if they are literally going to dominate us, or we are going to dominate them. And they are forcing our hand instead of coexisting. We want to coexist.
There is no coexisting. That's what I was about to ask.
No, there is coexisting. At this, there was.
For them, that's not an option, I guess, is what I'm getting at. They don't want to at all.
Yes, exactly. Okay. That they rather choose the defeat option because it allows them to become rulers in it. As the whole peace treaty, instead of genociding them and extincting their species, we gave the Astra High Command, I always say we because of the proximity to them, but the Astra High Command gave them a solar system of their own, just with no intelligent life on it. They can rule as long as they stay there. There would be no further conflicts.
But would they just redo this solar system? Would they just go make, a race like, is that any better, or is we just hiding them in the corner?
Well, only a fool would think that planet wouldn't have security and fail safe. They're basically putting them in a prison that they can live in to their heart's content. And that thus, they're going to be locked away, but kept alive. And there's this thing like we're not going to sink to their level. They would have killed every single one of them. All right. That's the difference between us and them. The Orion Draco would have killed every single Ashtar High Command member species that rebelled against them and enemy of that empire forever into the future. There is no coexistence in the traditional Orion Draco empire. It is Orion Draco supremacy. So yeah, we beat the supremacists.
But even to the extent they don't want a class of people to rule, they don't, you know what I mean? Like they don't, like, yeah, they don't want to coexist, but they just don't want to be partners with us in society. They want to rule us. So they would destroy us all and not care that they didn't have anyone to rule over.
They could always remake man. They can always clone them. They can rebreed us. They can have the DNA on file. All right. There are currently still human beings in their slavery system, but yeah, they've been recently released. But yeah, during all of this, there were human beings surviving in prison, basically in Orion Draco Empire cities, just as food and as slave labor. Yeah, like you're right, but they don't need to any individual or anyone already alive. They can just come back, kill everyone, and repopulate again, reseed. If given the opportunity. You're absolutely right. That has to be forced against them. And you're right. They're going to be watched every single moment to prevent them from recreating and abusing an intelligent species to harness what ultimately is just an addicting drug to them. Loosh.
Right.
The addicting drug is not necessary for their survival. It literally
that's
is
what I was
like,
going to ask. It's not sustenance at all. It is literally a drug to them. Yeah.
it is literally a drug to them. They need to change their sadistic ways, but the Orion Draco are permitted to still live and exactly live another day, as long as they're closely monitored and basically prevented from ever abusing. And yes, I'm pretty sure they're going to be chemically sterilized in the generations to come. That's above my pay grade. That is Galactic Federation of Light. That is the fate of species due to their own karma. Exactly. I didn't decide the fate of a million-year-old, like, plus like many, many hundreds of millions year old reptilian intelligent life form that's there, and Galactic Federations of Light's policies and diplomacy. I'm just the messenger. Like, I'm just trying to make sense of it myself.
Right. No, exactly. So as it pertains to the reptilians and all that, where again, you said a lot of them are currently living in Russia. When you say them again, are you referring to the sort of the faction of the reptilians that have refused to go along with the nefarious agenda that the others have? I don't want to say nefarious per se, but the more negatively oriented plans or proposals.
Yes, actually, you're absolutely right. One of the major factors for us allowing their integration into our society and to basically become citizens in our governments and our cultures legally and with permission, like peacefully, is because they came and disarmed a lot of traps and security systems that were fucking up our planet's ecosystem that were left over by the defeated Orion Draco.
Right.
Like, this planet is mostly artificial, and it's many of the caverns and bunkers that have been from the very Orion Draco Empire days when they had complete control over it. They created many doomsday devices, dead man switches, and that could have literally extincted every single human being. If, if one of them was set off, they would all be set off. They provided their intelligence. They have saved the Earth in their own way. They are monitored and closely tracked. They've submitted to every single cross interrogation, psychic examination, etc. At that point, they are more on our side than even some human beings are, especially those in the Cabal. And they're, like I said, that's part of the reason why the Mayan Aztec surrendered with the Artemis Treaty that was specifically signed for this Mayan Aztec war between them and the surface world, was because when the Orion Draco were welcomed, they've been providing warriors, they've been providing ships, they've been providing their, efforts, which that was enough to tip the scales. And like I said, the Aztec Mayan know exactly who the Orion Draco are, and with this all, right in front of them, that it was better to sign a peace treaty than to, exactly risk an interspecies war.
Now, as it pertains to crypto-terrestrials, could you delve into a little bit of that before we finish off the second hour here, pertaining to crypto-terrestrials, different factions, some of their intentions, technologies, if you happen to know?
Yes, there are many different crypto-terrestrials / ultra-terrestrials. We spoke about the merman earlier, the aquatic variant. Basically, the different ecosystems have caused different intelligent life to evolve on Earth, and it's taken basically every single animal kingdom has a version of an intelligent life form or intelligent species that's peer-to-peer with mankind, that has technology or the ability to understand it, and a real consciousness or a real collective psyche, whether it be a hive mind, like there's slime mold and fungus that is able to understand its own existence and like reference this real geographical understanding of the Earth and communicate with mankind directly. There are diminutive humanoids that are barely 2 feet tall. They usually range between 6 inches as children to 2 feet tall maximum.
Got you.
They live in the Rocky Mountains. But these people have technology, sufficient technology, incredibly advanced mathematics. Now, they've always fled and retreated and kept themselves secret because of their extremely poor design. I mean, we're talking trauma from caveman days. You know, there are also Yeti,
right?
The opposite,
Is
men
that
who
is
are
that the people that Phil Schneider, I think, is that his name, that ran into when he was underground, ran it like went into an underground base with a lot of small people when he shot one? Is that who that
they
race
were
you're talking about?
The Phil Schneider encounter, he encountered reptoid workers basically that were operating with the tall grays. They weren't small. He said they were between 7 to 8 feet tall.
Oh,
They
okay.
were
For I guess for
they
whatever
were
reason,
yeah.
I remembered him saying small in the
No,
story. My bad, my bad.
these have been known as the little people in Native American folklore, Cherokee folklore. They used to be all across America, and they used to live side by side with people, Fey folk, leprechauns, even more ridiculous terminology. But the idea that these little people live within coexistence of nature, and if you were to observe them with a layman's eye, you wouldn't think they had any technology, but they have spaceships that are cloaked. They have infrastructure, high-speed railways. They are like your traditional understanding of gnomes. And I always say this, and I'm like,
they're not machine elves or those kinds of, right? You're not saying
actually, yes, that they can come through with their own technologies.
Okay.
They exist on the astral realm. They have psychic abilities.
Okay.
Just like he's like, don't judge them because they're fucking 6 inches tall or 2 feet tall. It's just
right.
Exactly. This was like, this is one of those old terrestrial crypto-terrestrials, and you're like, why don't they show themselves? They've already tried, and they were just, it didn't go well.
Are any of them the result of hybrid experimentation, or like, if you could put just curious, based on your research, your experience in the SSP and all that, what would you put a percentage on? Maybe the numbers have changed today generally, but what would you relatively put a number on? Like, okay, 80% of crypto-terrestrials are the result of hybrid experimentations by humans and Orion Dracos, or you know what I'm saying there?
Well, the human species itself is a product of genetic engineering by the Orion Dracos. We were created on a currently terraformed world. So they had already affected the environment and created through just an artificial environment the means for evolution to produce the original human being, whatever that primate version of it was, mostly likely to resemble a chimpanzee, right? And that was then genetically altered, bred like a dog. And from the wolf, you get the pug. From the root race, which most likely is the Yeti and the Sasquatch variant, which is this ultimately very ancestral, but also in its own way genetically altered. There's no pure lineage. There's no pure original human being anymore, right? That it's already been evolved to its many different specifications. And they did it just because they could, really. Like, yeah, they made a merman because they could make this primate evolve like they did the whales or the dolphins. They could put through this the system, the pressures and the factors, as well as alter its genetic code. But if you took DNA, we're all human. If you took DNA, same number of chromosomes, same. There's not one
across all of these races, you mean, or across all humans?
Across all the race, they are human. They are human by definition. These are humans. I know it blows people's minds because the variance is so great, but just like dogs, the variance we see from our own hand, what we've done to dogs, we've turned them from the wolf to the Chihuahua. They took the primate man and turned them into these hundreds, if not thousands, of different versions of ourselves that have ultimately, there's a handful of them that survived, and these strongest members of them are not wusses. They didn't survive because they're cowards or they're weak or they're dumb. They survived because we are all intelligent and we are all survivors. They have just chosen to hide, to be subtle, to be discreet, and to live in ultimately an unempirical way. And this is because we've already had wars with them. We've already had our skirmishes. They've already been traumatized by the Orion Draco. Once liberated, they had no, they just wanted to be left alone.
Just curious, technologically, and how advanced are these crypto-terrestrials? Or maybe that's too much of a vague question, because maybe
they have space travel. They have their own vehicles, anti-gravity technology many times. They were actually very surprising because unlike our society, they have free exchanges of technology. And so yes, they have personal force shields, teleporters, and that is the explanation for many of the phenomenon like light orbs in the forest, missing 4 and 1, things like people saying they've shot Bigfoot and Bigfoot teleported away from them like instantly. The idea that because they're hairy or because they walk around with less clothing means they're primitive. I've personally spoken about this before, that there are hippies that walk around without shoes and eat uncooked vegetables. It doesn't mean humanity as a whole. It's just that this is like, yes, you may encounter a Yeti or a Sasquatch that's just walking around, and it doesn't mean that the species is stupid. It just means you caught one on a nature hike. Like you caught one doing an analogous hippie retreat, and they're nudists, and they're getting back to nature.
And where, sorry, their access points in terms of the general vicinity, geographically and all that. Is it similar to what you described on our last call 2-3 months ago pertaining to Sasquatches, how they sort of have the very advanced holograms to go in and out of what we perceive to be trees and rocks and things like this? Or do they live inside pocket dimension dwellings, where it looks small from the outside, but once you get in, it's much larger, that sort of concave earth type concept? What's the, do you see what I'm getting at? Where do they live? How do they live in terms of geographic structure?
They basically coexist within our country, within our borders. We are satisfied by saying that because it's part of, like, I don't know, Montana, that we must know everything about it. But Montana is this massive, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of square miles of area and mountainous terrain, etc. And just hypothetically, there could be an underground city that holds 100,000 of those Sasquatches, and they live in the Rocky Mountains where it's impossible to reach by foot, and you'd only be able to see it, any trace of it, by infrared, spy type plane reconnaissance. And in fact, until there's only been maybe a handful of people who have even surveyed the area, let alone climbed that very mountain, not in any kind of like search capacity. And that it's not, at that point you're like, oh, of course they can just live, as long as they're not like waving flags and playing like music really loud, as long as they're not trying to make a big scene. And remember, this culture is not stupid, so they're like, hey guys, we're gonna lay low. There's like fucking human beings, and they got bombers, and how they go. The Littlefoot, and they talk like, I don't think they're real. I've never seen one. And yeah, they are real. They have cities. And they're having the same conversation. Well, they're not in the mountains. Where would they live? On the coasts? So you're saying that there's millions of people living on the coasts and cities? I've been to the beach. I've never seen one. Exactly. And you're like, no, the people, and you'd be surprised that it all can coexist because it's all so very distant. And like, if it's an inch, it's a mile. If it's a mile, it might as well be on the moon. And like I said, and that are the intersecting points, ironically, are the wilderness, because it's their wilderness too. It's our wilderness. No one really owns it. And that's why most of them are only encountered deep in the woods, deep in the mountains, deep in
this is what I was gonna thank you for bringing that up, brother. When you say the natural parts, the woods and all that, I wanted to ask the national parks, a lot of people, national forests, national parks, a lot of people know that even in America, connecting into Canada, North America, there's the connection of national parks relative to access points to deep underground military bases, things like that. Are these national parks also a very common place for well, we know, as you mentioned previously, Sasquatches, they come in and out of certain, I guess, realities, if you will, or certain bases and things like this. But what about the crypto-terrestrials? Do they also share a bit of that national park sort of land, or what goes on there?
Yes, of course. And many of them live underneath cities. Many of them live right literally in front of us, and we just don't see it. Like elevators of many buildings just go down to subterranean levels, etc. And they could literally be coexisting amongst people and not necessarily need to move. Now, yes, during the wilderness, they'd let down their guard. In urban areas, of course, the security is, I don't know if you've ever seen like the Adjustment Bureau level or Men in Black level. Those are the people who kind of keep the peace and keep everyone separate. But it's like Men in Black, where, like they either can coexist in human society and follow the human laws, including their visibility. That's monitored very strictly.
Right.
But a shaved Bigfoot could easily walk around the streets of New York City and no one would even lift their heads. They've said this before on the BBC, that Neanderthals, if you just gave them a shave and a haircut, could pass as a regular person. You would think that there's wild variances. And yeah, the little people can't get around, but there are ways around it. Men in Black famously had the full-sized human suit with the little guy piloting inside of it.
Yes.
These little people are that mechanically advanced that they could literally create these suits, be given these suits, and understand the, like, hey man, just stay in the suit when you go out. You can walk around, but if you want to continue to live here, don't fucking ever be caught out. Like, all right, witness protection program style. And the guy's like, oh, thank you. I get to live amongst you people and study you. I'm an anthropologist in my own society. Right. I'm the professor of Little Person University in the Rocky Mountains, right? Now I'm going to do my Jane Goodall work. I've agreed with the human government to do this, and the humans are like, yeah, you can study us, just don't bother us. They don't interfere or get in our ways. And you're going to have like an FBI agent follow you around to make sure you're on the level. And the guy's like, yeah, same thing. We send our scientists and our anthropologists literally to live with them. They're not exactly. I know they're not every day and they're not common to integrate, right? Well, because they're human, we can communicate. We can see eye to eye. We are developing improved relationships with these crypto-terrestrials, with these ultra-terrestrials. And yeah, previously they had to manipulate us. They had to pretend that they were religious beings or demonic beings or metaphysical trickster beings. They had to use their technology to fool us and to terrify us and to keep us away from them. But those days are now obsolete, since we've already are in the state of great disclosure, that we're already in the state of the Great Awakening, that you're going to start seeing people becoming way hipper to this, as well as just seeing them more and more and more, seeing them more frequently. No longer are they afraid of it.
Gotcha. Right. Now, sorry?
I was gonna say, like, no longer are we really attacking them. We're not villagers anymore. That the normal person does not want to shoot a Bigfoot on sight, does not want to shoot or kill someone who's different than them. And this could be a person who lives underground as a troglodyte, who has larger eyes because they live nocturnally and they have a very alien appearance. Like, I'm thinking like the Descent. But I know that the Descent, they're monsters. They're hungry. They're people though, and they need you see the human urge, the ability to look past our differences or look past any kind of violence, and to see there's a human bridge. That's the 21st century way of thinking.
Now, okay, I appreciate you saying that, because I did want to ask about, I guess this kind of segues into sort of the third hour, sort of, in a way, but at the same time, I wanted to ask if we could sort of deconstruct and break down and get a very firm understanding of the Men in Black. And the reason I say that is because you brought up a very interesting point a few minutes ago when you said that the Men in Black in some cases allegedly seem to sort of help mediate the territorial, boundaries and, the tensions between different crypto-terrestrials and, interdimensional beings and what have you. So my question, really, to sort of start this off, if you're interested in jumping into this, is: are the Men in Black one species in particular? Some speculate that they're hybrid beings made from the dumb bases with the humans in Orion Draco alliance. Others speculate that they're crypto-terrestrials. Some of them have come on board to work with human governments to help cover things up militarily and stuff like that. Could you sort of break that down? And then also what role they play relative to other species on Earth and things like that?
That's a very good question. That's a loaded question.
So you have all the time in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Multiple part question. I'll try to break it down and answer it, but remind me if I'm missing anything during my answer of it. No, as they are human.
As you go, I won't interrupt you, so please.
Thank you. They are human. They are human-run, human-led. They are part of the breakaway civilization, and they have been for much longer than anyone else. They're part of the Rockefeller Company of intelligent agents that, the military industrial complex in its formative Depression era days of World War I into World War II. Excellent OSI, MI5. They're multinational. They're not necessarily all American. And even the ones that are quote unquote American were not normal. They're not given childhoods like you think. They're raised from birth through orphanage.
Are they generally NATO aligned relative to like our percent? Okay.
But they operate internationally. There was a Soviet Union counterpart, the black Volvo. That's their type of car. That there would be sightings of men in black cars with black uniforms, black hats, black sunglasses, white undershirts, who would ask questions over. Like, no, that's the thing. It's an international thing. But the ones that operate in America have always been talked about as having very like odd mannerisms, and there have been a lot of Asian.
Yes, that's why. Yeah.
That they said they could be a member of a dragon family, for example. And a dragon family is a Chinese family that moved to America to form the colony of Formosa. They had alien technology. They from the days of when China was sailing around the world, they've been monitoring the advancements of the United States as a secret society, and they're known as the dragon families. They're these shadow cabals, these secret societies. They don't have a connection to regular real world people, as in like they are as alien as a gray is to humanity, even though they are humans. They never were allowed to play or to have friends or to live in any kind of capacity, except the fact they are like the SCP Foundation in real life. They are literally an entire society built just simply to keep the secret, which they didn't want to keep. That secret was forced by the Ashtar High Command and the Galactic Federation from the very top down. And this is why they have such a mission to keep that secret. This is why they have such a motivation to do it, an urgency. It's not because they answer to any authority like the FBI or the CIA or the DIA. They don't answer to the president or the Majestic 12. They, in fact, in many ways, tell them what to do and make sure they do it. And if anything is like they do more like mind wiping and screen.
I just wanted to say I had a strong feeling that they were not associated with MJ12, and if they were, MJ12 could not control them, because I'm the way in which you look at the Nimitz case, where Commander Fravor says, these men in black came in black helicopters, black suits, landed, took the tapes, and they basically said to everyone, part of my English, like, fuck you, it's classified. But even to the point where even the Majestic 12 was like, we don't know what this was about. So
exactly. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. That they can go. They have like you heard about the higher clearances. There's Q clearance, Raytheon, or like Quartz
TK clearance.
They have that domain where they're the ones in charge of those clearances. So you're right. Even someone like the captain of the Nimitz or Majestic 12, it's above their pay grade. And like I said, it's because they literally work for extraterrestrials. They work for people like the Venusians in the Ashtar High Command, Valiant Thor, for example. Like I said, there are extraterrestrial representatives on Earth that control much more than any human-ran leadership or government. And even the elements that wanted too much, the elements that pretend that they are a part of this higher order, get purged with the men in black. They're the ones that literally have control over life and death on this plane. Like I said, some criminals are executed on the spot because the men in black, they said some extras are arrested. They arrested the 9 tall grays that under Area 51 this past year. They said like that's what their jurisdiction is. Like they're detectives, they're the investigators, they're the not so much the SWAT team, but they are the ones that are like and they have advanced technology. One of the best stories I know about the Men in Black is the one with the coin, and the Men in Black agent shows a coin to an individual and then puts it on his palm and waves his hand over it, and the coin disappears. And the guy says, the coin's not real anymore, or the coin's not here anymore. And if you tell anyone, this will be your heart. And people wonder how heart attacks happen, how sudden deaths happen, how people get silenced.
Yes.
And it's because they literally are judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to keeping the secret. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. The secret up until now, the great age of disclosure, had to be kept. No evidence could exist. It was just like part of the Cold War. It was that part that secrecy mentality.
Right. Now, just
for
curious,
better or worse.
for better or for worse. Right now, just curious. They're humanoid. Are they fully human? And I ask this because we've seen some cases, and again, not saying that they're, you know, that humans don't have this ability. It's possible that we've just been suppressed in this body, in this lifetime, in this reality and dimension. But we see, for example, some footage of some human-looking men in black, although the faces are a little bit strange, the structure of the head of the body, and then all of a sudden they'll gesture with their hand, and then someone just seems to go into like a telepathic trance. What's that all about in that regard?
Like I said, that's just part of the variation of human beings. I know exactly what video you're talking about. That's a human being. He's just a tall, oddly
Right.
pedigreed, like Northern European, you know, but the head's shaved. Exactly.
Right. Yep.
The breakaway civilization. And he acts very confidently because they have the hypnosis down. Like I said, they're taught hypnosis. They're taught the ability to like we call it magic, but it's tricks. It's that kind of, you know, a magician knows your birthday. He's like, hey, let me tell you your name. What's your name? Jay. Your name is, you know, and they can do that, like take your watch off your wrist, and you know, it's like sleight of hand. That's why he said he makes a hand gesture, and then you go into a hypnosis state, and he's able to direct you and control you. I said that's their confidence level. That's their ability. Like that's their intelligence. Yeah, it's not like they're psychic or have mutant powers. It's just that's like a hypnosis. It's real. Now their odd appearance, of course, like I said, the breakaway civilization, they're not like from real population centers. It's not like, oh, you're just a normal guy from Chicago and then you're going to become a Men in Black member.
Yeah.
You're kind of born in literally a breakaway culture. They could live like on a mountain in Sweden in an orphanage until a certain age and then be given the black suit and the black hat and then told to go on their field operations in America.
I see. And they're familiar with ET existence and all that. They're taught the whole A to Z type thing.
Exactly. That's what they mean with the breakaway civilization, is that they literally are taught the truth. And we are not taught. We are on the zoo. We are in the Matrix, and they are literally the Agent Smiths of the Matrix. They're more part of the system than we are. Like they said, they are more aware and they have a greater responsibility in the system. As we just watch it happen, we are the passive experiencers of the Matrix. We're plugged in, we're jacked into the Matrix. They're the Agent Smiths. They're the ones who have free will. So they know. Like, have you ever watched the Adjustment Bureau?
Yes. Yep.
Specifically, they know where all the secret doors are. They, you know, and even then, the guy said, what number are you thinking of? And the guy's like 17. He goes, I knew you were going to say that because I put that thought in your head. Like, you know, they have ability to master our reality. Well, we think we're in an office building. We don't know that there are secret doors and cameras watching us. We think we know exactly. The zookeepers know much more about the operation than we do, right?
Right. Now, and how many of
them? They do have robots and they have clones. They have robots and they have clones. Now, the robots and clones, exactly. Those are the
different purposes.
Well, basically because there's a lot of risk that they take in these operations, and they don't have a lot of manpower. Now they can multiply their manpower by having like one real agent and 3 robots, 3 androids, and the androids are sufficient to be autonomous, but they do stand out, and they're not human, and they act really stiff and awkward. And that's where you get your majority of like one turn their head, and then all of them turn their head, or they don't like. You know, one was just immediately in my house and just kind of like he had lipstick on and didn't have real lips and didn't have like he was wearing a wig and skin looked like it was plastic. Like specifically, some of them even say like I need to power down. Like that's where you get these weird like Men in Black questions. And I think that was part of the.
Are they conscious or no? These particular ones.
No more conscious than like an android data or like a C3PO or like a computer,
right?
With an algorithmic AI and ability to like respond. Yes, it's aware of itself, but no, it's a machine.
Do they serve different purposes based on whether or not to send out a literal, as you say, you know, human Agent Smith, or to send out a droid, or to send out a, you know,
they have their benefits, and the benefits, of course, cannot be. Yeah, of course they do, and like one of them, the stories I remember from the Men in Black was a woman's car was broken down outside of a government base, and these Men in Black drove out and picked her car up physically with their bare hands Like she had driven into a ditch outside of a secret military base, but that's clearly there are robots. And one guy was just like, hey, go out there and get that girl's car out of the ditch so she doesn't bring a tow truck in any further attention. And so, like, yes, these robots could take a bullet to the head and not that wouldn't stop them.
So this is why the descriptions are so strange over the many years in the last 70, 80 years of Men in Black.
Yes, that when they use the robots, when they use the clones, it's in high danger situations. It's in the apprehension of individuals or to do the dirty work. That's saying, like, yes, there are the human element, but they use them like you would use any robot, the dirty work, the things you don't want to do, and the things that you physically just don't, you can't do. Like exactly, like you've got to lift a car out of a ditch, you use the robot. That's why it's like take the robot. Like he's your robot sidekick, and they're not the ones calling the shots. It's not an AI controlled operation, but yeah, they are androids, and we've had androids since Nikola Tesla days, since even before that. And so, yeah, it's part of the breakaway civilization is this massive use of synthetics and androids.
If you had to put a number on them population wise, what would you say globally, not just respective to, North America or Europe, or if you had to put a rough number based on your research, what you've gathered, your experiences in SSP and all that, what would you say?
Even more than that, sorry, are they making them in a factory, or are these things, are they coming from, from the secret space program out there and they're coming to the Earth? Like, where are they even coming from and how many?
Sorry, you must have, we just covered that, brother.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes. I didn't know where they were coming from. That's what I missed.
The androids are made just to a simple factory.
Oh, sorry, Camden, were you asking about the androids? I apologize.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Never mind,
yeah.
Sorry, we covered the biological side. We did not cover
I meant, just the androids. Where are they coming
the androids
from
are just manufactured and
my
they're
apologies.
manufactured on Earth. That's not even that advanced technology of it. They're
right.
The factories are not, massive, sprawling complexes. They're built more to order. Like I said, they're not mass produced in the millions. They just have stockpiles and warehouses. Right. Like, no, they're more built to spec. Care is taken of them. Consider them more like Lamborghinis than Toyota, Priuses.
I got you.
Yeah, you could find a Toyota Prius in everyone's garage, but a Lamborghini would, it involves some level of skill at our stage, even at the Men in Black stage. Now,
right, like a Lambo, you get it delivered to you, custom order, like that whole.
Made. Yeah, exactly. And that they actually have, they're not expendable. They're expendable, but they are long-term investments. You have sometimes as Men in Black, the androids definitely outnumber the humans at this point, but yeah, they're absolutely essential to operations. Thing about the Men in Black is there's also now the creation of the Men in White. The Men in White are a newfound organization. It's, how do I say this? A positive Men in Black, whereas a Men in Black is a negative thing in the terms of it takes away information and it keeps the secret. The Men in White are going to give the secret and tell the technology to people. And these Men in White are being called white hats and all the OPSEC type information. They're going to be doing it online. They're going to be doing it digitally. These Men in White are going to be these anonymous, like Q. Q is a Men in White.
You're talking about the whole QAnon.
The Q drops, yes. The 4-year period of Q drops, those were operations from the Men in White. The Men in White are the positive side of this breakaway civilization.
But are they even AIs? Like I point to Tyler, the AI that kind of like seems to have figured things out. Or are they biological beings using a computer? Are they ghosts of the machine? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, the Men in White are like human beings. They're the human element. They're just a different school, if you were, of the Men in Black operation.
Okay, all right.
Where you got you had for the last 100 years secret keepers, and now you're going to have
secret tellers.
Yes, exactly. And they're going to be the ones responsible for the dissemination of information, the distribution of information. And that is going to be, you're going to start seeing a lot of mystery advisors, anonymous sources, whistleblowers, like Julian Assange level, like WikiLeaks style. Right. But for black projects, for CIA, like Vault 7 level, information leaks. And
like
you're going to start
some of the scientists that just left Los Alamos.
Yes, maybe? That they're going to be protected by the men in white. That this information is going to be not only provided for them, but also it's like the efforts are going to be there in full, and that this is all part of the plan. But it's exactly like how the Men in Black operated, secretly, shadowily, mysteriously. Men in white are going to be seen more. There's going to be more eyewitnesses to the Men in white. There's going to be more interaction with the public, like on a highly visible level.
Got you. Okay. You're
like holding press conferences visible, or like I'm just asking?
More like the Men in Black sightings now. Like, you know how, yes, the Men in Black are secret, but they're not secret. Everyone knows about them. There's been major movies. The Men in White maybe even have a movie made. Like you'll see it. Like, trust me, it's crazy now, but in 5 to 10 years, when you see like Will Smith in a white suit helping humanity, and it's going to be like
it's not Will Smith though.
Exactly, like somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, oh, they're wearing white, and they're the good guys. These white hats. You're already starting to hear the language. White hats, black hats, red hats, green hats. That's offset code for these operations that they're already trying to plan and prep the mindset to hear this. That there's color coded teams, if you were like I know how immature that sounds, but there's color coded factions like red team, blue team, white team, black team.
I mean, they did it in Tenet just now too, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. You're going to start seeing a lot of publicity in that way, not press conferences, not like Stephen Greer.
I was just clarifying. Sorry, no,
it's going to go up on not like we're going to call the local news and set the story straight.
Right.
But you're going to start seeing a lot more psyops, a lot more, not psyops, predictive programming, a lot more, like OPSEC, a controlled visibility. And because it's not going to happen overnight, it's going to happen over the years, but it's going to be connected to the Great Awakening, to disclosure, etc. Like I said, I think the best way that they're going to do it is movies, and they're going to start showing movies where human beings help aliens or aliens help human beings.
Oh, it's definitely a thing now. But I mean, my favorite saying is probably like Hollywood doesn't lie to us.
Yeah, the idea that that's going to be their preferred way to go. That's going to be their go-to is these films and these TV shows and movies and things. But it's
Marvel's doing a damn good job of it right now, actually. Case in point. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
It's going to be like in a positive, like no more alien invasion movies, no more aliens are the enemy or they're just trying to eat us. It's going to be, hey, they have the secret to cure cancer, or hey, we need to think about joining them in the galactic neighborhood. It's going to be this like 180. It's going to be a complete 180 shift from the typical like standard status quo of how Hollywood treats aliens and things like that. Now are there any other questions of xenobiology? Any other races or
I think we've covered. I think we've covered all of the main ones with respects to I guess you could say, the different species and all that stuff, particularly, having to do with what's been prevailing recently in the skies and whatnot. Did you want to move into the next topics?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's keep pace with it. And I think this is Xeno-technology or reverse engineered technology that's going to be given to us in this guise of like human invention, but it's advanced technology, black project technology. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you want to, the floor is yours. If you want to take over.
Oh, no, I was going to say, let it rip. Whatever kind of questions you might be having about how UFOs are what propulsion devices, life support systems.
Well, see, this is the thing I wanted to ask next. I know that there's different propulsion systems and things like this. And we see, for example, people like Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, and these guys, getting close to that metaphorical line of how they work and then just stopping right at that line or stopping just short of that metaphorical line as to how they they work. A case in point, just a few days ago, Lou Elizondo did his longest 2.5-hour question and answer session with a podcaster, and they asked, for visualization for the paper here, as many people on the show have seen before, instead of going from point A, for example, to point B, in a linear sense, they fold or they bend space and time towards them, or vice versa. Now, Mr. Elizondo said, for example, he goes, that concept is right on the money, but he said there were certain things he could not speak on in addition to that, but he said the craft are doing that, but they're also moving in another way. Could you have any insight to that by chance, with respects to what he means in that regard?
They're moving in a way that, yes, the wormhole or the warp jump technology does factor into a lot of the long distance travel, but they're also moving in faster than light travel. Now, the reason why he doesn't want to say that is because it's a lightning rod to all the mainstream science and science believing skeptics, the scientism followers, that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, right? Like that, no, nothing, it's not possible. It's not physically possible. There's no physical way that you can go faster than the speed of light. That is not true. You can go faster than the speed of light. Speed of light is just a relative approximation. You can even multiply factors of speeds of light, and thus you don't need to jump or create a wormhole or a bend of space and time, which is one way, but you can literally travel through linear space and time just at speeds not technically mainstream recognized as quote unquote possible. Now, the impossible is no barrier when it comes to science. True science, true engineering makes the impossible possible, right? It makes that the incredible every day, and it masters these feats. And human beings have already achieved the ability to travel multiple times faster than the speed of light. Extraterrestrials mostly universally have this ability as well. Now, this is the exact same thing as saying that there's a difference between warp drive and hyperspace, where if you travel through between dimensions, that's bending space and time, the event horizon use of travel, etc., like bending physical reality. But then there's just hauling ass, and the second
that's what I was about to ask.
And that's it. They physically, it's not possible for them to achieve the speeds necessary for them to conveniently travel between planets, etc., the way they do, unless you consider the impossible. They've already broken the speed of light. That was like the sound barrier. When they said it couldn't be broken, now we have hypersonic craft.
Right. Because if you're not, well, my favorite way to think of it is, instead of trying to go point A to point B, like pulling point B to you. Like
traveling so fast that because the math and the scale is always considered within the speed of light. Like I said, like you would think.
Okay.
Well, like, when scientists, mainstream, Stephen Hawking, when Michio Kaku, when all the mainstream scientists are considering how to travel between here and say Mars, they don't even imagine faster than the speed of light travel. They don't comprehend. They don't.
Right. No, I 100% agree. Yeah, and I hate that they don't. But they don't on purpose, right?
Do you think?
On purpose.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say they know of it, but they're forced to not make that opinion public or that proposal public.
Yes, because like I said, if I've been able to figure it out with a self-taught education, and I see many people have through various channels and blogs, etc., the science adds up, and mainstream professors have pursued it. They are considered fringe and controversial, but the math is there, the science is there. It's been considered science fiction for the last 70 years, but it's absolutely possible. And this breakaway civilization has ensured that it is possible with the inclusion of extraterrestrial technology, exotic materials that are not disclosed in the surface or the white world, but are solely the black projects, the black worlds, black sciences, that domain. Things like antimatter, things like laser propulsion cells, and things like using nuclear fission, etc., to exponentially increase. So it's not like you have
low energy nuclear reactor, I think is one, right?
Yeah, like the Orion, where it's literally you're blowing up nuclear explosions outside your ship and basically
propelling yourself with it.
Propelling yourself forward. Exactly. Those are considered taboo exotic technologies that we wouldn't seriously consider. NASA would never seriously do that. Well, right? The militaries would never openly disclose any development or research into those because they're so fantastic. But that's exactly what we've mastered. Or technologies like that, like we use electromagnetic drives, EMP or EM drives, and then they're starting to disclose the science behind it. Now
through China, NASA, I guess, is what we decided.
No,
right?
Through NASA.
Oh, through NASA.
They have developed an EM drive. You can look it up. They say like EM drive.
Okay.
Drive. Well, they're already starting to disclose this, and it'll be part of the great revealing. That's why I said Lou Elizondo knows about this. He cannot disclose it because this is it's like it's part of the whole Black Project thing, and he doesn't want to get in trouble because he was given security clearance that would verify it. You know, it's a very important secret to keep. But
did someone like Einstein, like did he leave the hole in his theory of relativity on purpose, or was that just far enough back that we weren't quite there yet?
Einstein was actually I don't know how to say this. He was a controlled opposition to quantum mechanics. He was not what you would call a cutting edge.
That's what I mean. Like, did he purposely leave?
He purposely created that to confuse and to serve like a fake history or a fake
because it was complex enough that you couldn't disprove it. But
that's why Niels Bohr told him to go shove it up his ass. Niels Bohr, as like other scientists in quantum mechanics physics that we listen to in the real world, were Niels Bohr and everything. They said that no, this guy's obviously fucking just screwing with people and telling them that things are impossible through things like God does not play dice with the universe. And the guy says, you don't tell God what to do with his dice. Like that's like Einstein literally was referencing it from a mindset that when he was born, they didn't have cars or electricity. Einstein was a patent clerk who lived in Budapest.
Do you think, based on the recent revelations of his assistant coming out, although we could argue that's controlled opposition, you know, misinformation as well, but ultimately, do you think, again, like Camden asked, he knew of the gaps in his equation, or he knew that equation overall was just only one angle or one answer? It
seems like he went to see these crafts, so like, why? Keep answer, I guess. Yeah.
In my opinion, he is what they call a useful idiot. And Einstein was someone who was so confident and self-absorbed that he would write long papers and journals, and he would bully pulpit through a force of charisma and personality the scientific community that was too conservative at the time to understand quantum mechanics properly. With the invention of CERN, etc., most of I think Einstein's only claim to fame was say that gravity bends light. And I mean, that was proven through visual observation with a photograph. So regardless if Einstein had said it or not, it would have been proven true. He was just basically saying the sky was blue. I mean, physics speaking, the true advancements of mathematics and physics, Einstein is not responsible for. Look up he's like Elon Musk. They don't have a patent to his name. Einstein is a name like Stephen Hawking or Michio Kaku that people recognize as a
Elon
scientist.
Musk has never made fucking anything. I know it. Ugh.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Einstein's like that. Just imagine 80 years from Elon Musk's death, people being like, man, he was so smart. And you're like, no, that's cringy. And I say, I'm not saying anything personal. I'm not ad hominem, but when you realize and learn about Einstein, Nikola Tesla was about 1,000 times more intelligent than Einstein. Differently, he was an electrical engineer, but no, I mean, every aspect of his life, the way that he approached subjects of learning. And it's just like comparing Edison with Tesla. It's like comparing apples and oranges. Edison took 2,000 times to make the light bulb, and Tesla was fucking like creating a wireless power grid across the earth for free electricity for the people. It's not the same. It's like, you know, like it's Einstein was creating theories of relativity to simplify what could just remain complex, because he was trying to Barney style the electric universe theory. He's actually hurting mankind and hurting scientific advancement.
In your humble opinion, brother, do you think Einstein before his death knew exactly what he was doing, who he was deceiving and all that?
Yes, Einstein was part of the I guess you call it a politically correct way, the Ashkenazi mafia.
Ashkenazi. Who else would be in that group?
The let's call them the tribe, Zionists around the world, and they are specifically gatekeepers when it comes to quantum mechanics and spiritual knowledge, ancient secrets, etc. And Einstein was their man on the inside, as it were, to try to create a mainstream scientific approach, just like how the Smithsonian Institute or the Freemasons create in their own ways false history and false science and muddy the waters with things like obsolete theories and really keep the discourse at the most elementary level possible. It's really a thing we need to break away from. I think mankind needs to do its best to break away from Einsteinian cult worship. Like Stephen Hawking was intelligent, but if you study his work, you're not going to get to outer space. You're not going to get to travel to Mars or exist in a off-world species level. You're not going to advance or ascend. He just spun his wheels. And I know Stephen Hawking, he's spinning his wheels, get it? But he really is. He didn't advance science, and people think he was this great champion of. No, he wasn't. What do you say? Black holes were real? We know that. An Indian man in the 1920s or 30s came up with the mathematical algorithm for black holes purely out of meditative thought, as a thought project, and because black holes weren't quote unquote real, they thought that maybe it didn't make any, it wasn't a real formula until science agreed, correlated, it all lined up. And then they realized that, yes, it was, he had discovered it without even seeing it, just mathematically. Like I said, true knowledge that humans are capable of is not relative to Einstein, especially when it comes to engineering. Einstein is not responsible for any of this technology in the slightest. Now, there are technologists and futurists that will never be known that have gone top secret, but one of them is actively publishing patents for technology. I believe you've covered it before. The patents for the Black Triangle, the TR3B, have been
Salvatore Pais?
Yes.
Okay.
That's something like they have. That's obviously a pseudonym.
Yeah,
it's obviously a nom de guerre for his nom de plume for his patents. But no, that science like that is coming forward. It does exist. Like, you were going to start seeing the patents for anti-gravity devices, for electromagnetic or electrogravitics. They're going to start seeing the patents for plasma shielding, for plasma drives, for scalar weaponry, laser propulsion, like solar sail type things. You're going to start seeing things like space colonies being patented that are affordable and that can sustain hundreds of people, regardless of just a few. And you're going to start seeing this come forward, and it's not going to be through the traditional avenues. It's going to be through these white hats who are going to start spreading this information, creating these technologies, like the water-powered car. Pretty soon, we're not going to go lithium battery. We're going to go water-powered combustion engines through the electrostatic electrolysis carburetor.
Right.
And that was invented in the 20th century. Now that's a technology that's been suppressed, and it's part of this that system of powering or creating electrical energy, creating physical kinetic energy with salt water and breaking out the hydrogen of it through extreme heat. That is how a lot of the spaceships, their internal systems operate. Say, like heating, life support, providing localized electricity. It's through using hydrogen power that's cultivated, or that's basically processed through seawater.
I was just going to ask about water. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's free. I'm saying like they just, and that's going to be available to everyone, and that's considered impossible now. People will never design or on the surface level even consider that. Like you could have a water powered spaceship.
Right, I got you. And so some of these craft, allegedly, there's one document, the Project Beta document that we were looking at. There, it discusses the analysis of a particular species based out of New Mexico, and their craft seem to only go off of, they can only run for about a week or so before they have to either return to the mothership close to the sun or extract energy from water, which is why their bases always seem to be their dwellings, if you will, relative to the amount of time they spend on Earth, is always close to a river or something like this, or a body of water. Does that make sense? Or
yes, that's the Astro High Command, actually.
Okay.
That's actually what their whole yes, their technology is super advanced, and they run a week on one scout ship's worth of fuel. But the fuel is the oceans, and the fuel is the water sources. Their bases are typically underwater, in lakes and in the coasts of, like, say, the Mediterranean Ocean, etc.
Right.
But it's why they operate the way they do. It's how they can also be concealed, and it's environmentally neutral. It's absolutely their modus operandi. They don't use pollutants. They don't use fossil fuels. They don't use anything unnatural. Their power is literally from the most abundant sources of fuel on the earth, water. Then they created the ships that they operate in our atmosphere specifically to function on that water. Now, ironically, Venus had very little water comparatively, right? We have 75% water. They maybe had 25% surface that was water during their prime, before their planet was reduced to a wasteland in a massive war. The point is, though, they developed that technology, and ironically themselves had fuel wars, had energy wars over water resources. So they see our planet as absolute paradise, and that they could live and function as a home base here forever, and that we have a natural water cycle and water table. And yes, that's exactly why you see UFOs just sucking up massive amounts of water. They take that fresh water, that natural water with all its microbiology, all its nutrients, like all its vitamins and minerals, basically. They take that ocean water or that lake water that's been, like, yes, it's pure, but it's pure in a way that it's so rare in the universe. They put that through their colony ships, their motherships. They have like artificial rivers running through their spaceships. They have rain that occurs inside their spaceships, like on their colonies. Like their spaceships are the size of cities, size of small countries, like islands basically flying around there. That's where a lot of this water goes. They're not storing all that water locally. They're bringing that water because it's extremely precious to them. That's how their system runs. It's like oil to us. And it's like, imagine finding a planet with oceans of oil. Yeah, it's going right up to, like,
Oh, that's a big oil executive's like wet dream right there.
Exactly. And it's not it's like, you're right. You're like, they want, yeah, they're here for the water. And so are many other species. Marine intelligent life and aquatic intelligent life values our oceans and our water systems very greatly.
Now, quick question, brother. There are craft, as you've said, that go off of water. We've seen documentation on that. We've seen, even in some cases, some footage and photographs of, disc-shaped craft, extracting water from a sea level or what have you. But is there any craft that simply can function, I guess you could say, not a mothership, but the smaller craft? I guess you could say that the little ships they send out to scout planets and all that. Is it possible any of these craft can survive simply based on the electric universe proposal, that the energy all around us it could feed off of that literally, or no?
Now, there are some, and of course, ground installations and ground support's extremely important, where they have charging stations, except they like to fly around thunderstorms.
Also, sorry, ionized air pockets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they usually draw from the ether that way, electrical propulsion, but they have the ability to have internalized power production, etc., through various means. But yeah, electromagnetics is a way of designing these ships. For example, different purposes have different propulsion devices. Warships usually have electromagnetic hardened propulsion systems. They don't just simply rely on the water, but the water is more for internalized, localized. The electromagnetic engines are for your outward propulsion engines, your major drives to cover great distances. That's where you want to use that.
Right.
Now, to say that they want to support themselves functioning forever, we have nuclear powered ships, airships / space planes, low orbit craft, even interplanetary craft that can operate for 10, 20, 25 years, sometimes 50 years, depending on the actual system of the reactor. That's not ideal. But yeah, long-term, fully independent, self-sustaining ship design, absolutely possible. And it is a thing. Not every ship is equal. And just because one race uses a ship does not mean it's the dominant pattern of ship. Although for example, like the Orion Drake, the Notwaffen, the Dark Fleet, and their inspiration from the Orion Draco makes human created ships more alien. And they use things like dark matter, event horizon engines, things like that. Now,
would that be considered vril per se, or that's different?
They control it with the vril. They improve their own lifespans with the vril. They are basically using the vril to be able to control this technology, to be able to operate it, both because yes, there's a lot of radiation that goes on, and they need that extra physical help, but also in their own sense, they are using alien technology, like hands down. Like there's no other way to say it. They are using almost entirely alien material. They're using entirely alien designs. Like I said, like the Orion Draco were like, here's how to operate our ships. Here's how to make our ships. If you want to work
I was
on
about to say, did they learn how to make them, or are they borrowing? Like, of course, are they getting old hand-me-downs?
They've now learned how to make them. Say, for example, the Orion Draco factories, not the Orion Draco, sorry, the Dark Fleet factories in Antarctica were surrendered and part of this agreement. They were claimed originally by the Chinese. The Chinese got to them first. This was a great amount of tension between the Earth powers, because the Chinese literally had the keys and complete control of Dark Fleet spaceship factories. The Chinese.
And this is something
what time period are you talking right now? Yeah.
This was within the last few years. This event happened this year where they surrendered those factories to the the Earth government, the Atlantis Rising government, Earth Alliance, Solar Warden, however you want to go. They surrendered it as a good faith gesture, because yes, they could have independently started creating spaceships. They could have, reverse engineered and just, started making a rogue space fleet, as an independence movement. But they didn't. They chose to cooperate and to join us, and to, now that is part of our manufacturing capabilities.
Okay, so the Notwaffen would not be going off with the Orion Dracos to their new solar system, no?
No, they will be. Not all of them, but yes, they are now mostly committed to this relationship that they have with them. Yes, there's still going to be a quote unquote highway between the two. Like I said, and they're going to be the ones that.
Oh, so this is a relative. I guess it doesn't have to be a close solar system.
No, it's not like they threw away the key. It's just that, the Orion, and it's a big solar system. It's not one habitable planet, and one star. It's and even the details I don't specifically know. But that's what they were assured, that this species was able to go and thrive there. They Notwaffen specifically agree with them philosophically, like about the vril, about their search for immortality, about their authoritarian power systems, and it's their free choice to accompany them. They were given the choice: do you want to stay or leave? And they chose to leave, to make their own system, basically, instead of having to coexist with our system, and thus kind of preventing any future conflict between the two radically culturally different factions of humans, the Solar Warden and the Notwaffen.
At this point, are like the people, the humans, a part of the not? Are they genetically different from us? I know earlier we talked about like everyone's human has the same DNA, but are they evolved differently?
They have a lot of hybrids.
It's not really been that long, so maybe not, but
they have a lot of hybrids now. Willingly going into hybrid programs, willingly going into Orion Draco, I don't want to say breeding programs because it's more scientific than that, but taking in like viral RNA, like DNA, and having it mutate their genes or having that be a part of, like, on a genetic level, they are more divergent than, say, yes, at this point, you can claim full hybridization, psychologically, mentally, spiritually, genetically. Yeah, they have the slit eyes sometimes. They're Orion Draco, like hairlessness, like that's the thing. Like, I know what you're saying. Yeah, now that I think about it, you're absolutely right. Dark Fleet, not Waffen, or
okay. Yeah, that's absolutely what I was getting to. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know if it had been long enough, because I mean, let's think about it. Not theoretically in Darwinism, not a whole lot of evolution happens in just what, like 70 years, I guess it's been. So
that's also a thing that we can, I forgot to talk about in xenobiology. Darwinism, the evolution of Darwinism, it has been proven, or at least disclosed lately, that it only takes 100 years for a subspecies to form.
Oh,
and so to explain the ultra-terrestrial capacity of it, all life, if you, for example, separated two species by an island like the Galapagos, it has been witnessed on the Galapagos Island that evolution is still occurring, and that animals that were witnessed by Charles Darwin have significantly changed into subspecies by current events. So evolution, I say, like, the idea of these ultra-terrestrials evolving, it's because they are fitting into environments which are incredibly diverse and separate than us. If human beings lived in caves in the Rocky Mountains, evolution may only take a few hundred years to knock 2-3 feet off of us and to make us more like mountain goats, with like feet that have like thumbs on them and things. Like I say, like the ultra-terrestrial evolution is not necessarily the creation of a new species, but the adaptation of a species to a new environment.
Got you. Okay, so now with I wanted to ask about the insectoid, I guess you could say, the sort of black goo in the sky type of thing that we were covering an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. Are their recharging or refueling method in general? Is there, even because they're living, is it just literally like a form of energy or food that they need, or is it still water in a lot of regards?
With them, it's a type of biological soup that they are kind of fed. It's like their fuel, and it operates exactly like the analog of fuel, where you just fuel up the tank. You literally, in their case, fill them up with this biological soup material that's like this pink sludge. It looks like the fluid from the Matrix pods, like that ectoplasmic pink, but it's just jellified Insectilian corpses from their own species. And so their dead are just turned into fuel for their ships. And this is done on mostly every level of their ships. So their ships are biological beings up until their colonies. So when they die in their colonies as like civilians in their race, their house literally eats them.
I got you. Okay.
I know it sounds, they're alien. I know, that's what I'm saying. But that's the merger of technology and biology, right? Where yes, your shelter has been fueled by your family members for generations.
I mean, it's incredibly fucking efficient. Like
exactly.
So yeah, admittedly.
And yes, that's what I was saying, that you can't judge these things for good and evil, because the fact that our houses don't eat us is alien to them to an extreme degree. And like, yes, they have this sense of love and welcoming, even though their society is very ghastly and like disgusting to us. Like,
I mean, they're like how fucking wasteful.
Exactly. That to them, DNA is a gift, and that their religious iconography is like the double helix and things. And cannibalism. Yeah, we would think cannibalism, to them, it's just recycling. To them, like I say, like most of their genetics and economy is versions of themselves that they have evolved and mutated to serve functions, like their dishwasher or whatever equivalent that would be a member of its own species, highly mutated, or a type of pet. It's like things would be like, your house would be like a pet, not a piece of property. And you're
I mean, it's a different take on reincarnation, I guess.
that's what I said about spiritually. That when you communicate with a mantid, and you communicate, like when I was visited by the mantid as a representative for the Ashtar High Command, like they're a member race of the Ashtar High Command. This has all been approved from the Galactic Federation of Light. This is all from the higher up, sanctified as a non-violent, peaceful species. Like they are in many ways a benevolent species because they did not choose to attack us. They can easily teleport down here. That's the thing. They have shown a massive amount of discipline and restraint when it comes to following their masters, which are also our masters. We have the same masters.
Right. They were told not to.
It's like telling a termite not to live in a house and eat it, and they're like,
and listening.
Yeah, and exactly. Now the termite might be disgusting, and the fact that it exists might be, weird and creepy. But yes, exactly. We're dealing with an insect-based intelligent life form, and just like with the reptilians, their cold-bloodedness, they are able to come up with solutions like technologies that we might benefit from. Human beings might be able to benefit from that technology. They, for example, could provide medical technology to us. And in fact, they're trying to hybridize with mankind. A big part of their plan, or at least was their plan, was to create generations of human insectilian hybrids.
Well, you talked about RNA earlier. Is that part of what this whole thing could be? Or
yeah. The truth with RNA is that if you inject an alien's RNA into your body, depending on how much you inject and the specific physiology of yourself, you would hybridize within your lifetime. And it's very
then your offspring, if you had any after the fact, would also
be hybrid. Exactly. And that because of cloning and stuff, they don't need to rely on wild humans. They just clone batches of humans until they get the right mixture of 50-50 insect and human. And it's a human that can live on the hive mind, and a human that looks human enough that we're not willing to shoot it in the face, during an invasion. And these would be the future insectilians that were adapting to successfully complete their species mission of taking over Orion Draco relics and scavenge the part until they left. As this might take a process of 1,000 Earth years.
For a second,
remember, their whole process
I mean, people talk about like black cubes, like in Mecca, or like Black Cube, the actual company, or like the symbology of the black cube. It's also said that's from like Saturn, where I guess people also say insectoids are from. But like, is a black cube actually a Orion Draco thing that they could like took? You get what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's you're seeing it for what it is. Good call. That's what their ship that they
scavenged. That's the word I was looking for. Scavenged.
Yeah. And it's rectangular and it's geometric because that's the framework that they built the hive in. And if you were to go into it, it would look like if bees had built a hive in a car, where like it's the outside frame of a car. If you open it up, it's a honeycomb and hive and full of bees. It's exactly the structure of their merger of technologies. They live in like old Orion Draco cities, and it's just like a honeybee made a hive over a pre-existing foundation. Right. And their culture reveres the Orion Draco, but they have already advanced enough to know that no, they just need to literally scavenge, because they've evolved to live basically. They can't make the shit themselves, and they know as they get bigger, they need more of it. They don't live in a society that can manufacture this technology. They can only scavenge due to their own limited abilities, like their own limited intelligence. Now, socially, they're brilliant. Now, socially, they're more cohesive than humanity, but yeah, we have better engineering skills.
Believe
it or not, human beings are actually incredible engineers. Human beings and humanoids are some of the most technologically gifted, mechanically gifted species.
Could that have to do with our thought of the way that we naturally think of fractal patterning, if you want to call it? Like, the way that sort of, regardless of what you see, whether it's in nature or in human construct of some type of human, organization, like a terrorist cell or a human company, or even the way that humans, like you said, engineer things and design things, that fractal way of thinking, that fractal design is always there. The whole sacred geometry concept does that make sense? Or
yeah, that intelligence is based on how you can see these platonic solids or these platonic truths. These truths that don't rely on individual filters or perceptions. They're not subjective, they're objective truths.
Right.
We can think objectively.
Most interesting, you start talking about that hive mind, that beehive, but like hope it doesn't get taken off the internet, but we're seeing a lot of like hexagonal shapes inside of these things. I think you know what I'm referring to. So yes, it makes me think exactly of that hive.
The Pentagon. No, I think the Pentagon was constructed.
Oh, I didn't mean in the real world. I'm in an arm thing.
Oh, yes, of course. No, you're going to see this pattern emerge because it's humanity basically flirting with the idea of a collective consciousness or a hive mind.
Right.
But is that good? Is that what we want? I don't know. I'm asking.
See, now that decision is not something that I can make for you. And like I said, it's something that's based on.
I guess I'm asking your opinion.
Like I said, I will refrain from adding an opinion to that because, like I said, we're looking at a future where the old world is gone. That book is closed. And that book was a fake book to begin with. It was a fake world. It was a world of secrecy. It was a world of protection. We were children in a nursery. And now we're adults. Like I said, it comes down to free will. It comes down to personal circumstance and opinion. But really, you're right that the Insectilians are responsible for that because the Insectilians have been, for years. Like I said, time works differently. They're on a quantum, variance wavelength, preparing to integrate themselves into our world through a hive mind, through this people call it the parasite, the enemy, the psychic passenger. But they do it subliminally through egregores. I believe in your videos, you talked about the egregores, the sigil, the merger between occult and science. And yes, good segue, because beyond just rocket ships and spaceships and laser guns and force fields, it's what we know is the occult. That's science. That's electrical engineering.
That's
the electrical universe. That's tapping into AIs wirelessly. That's tapping into systems of information that are like radio waves, and they're all around us from thousands of different broadcasts, and you got to tune into them. You got to create the receiver, the speaker, and the speaker are these, or we're the speaker, we're the amplifier for it, and the sigils help
the antennas.
The antennas. The sigils are more like the antennas, where they're the ones that gather the signal. They catch the signal. And if we're around the signal, connected to it, either inside it or through some kind of ritualistic bonding of it, can pick up and receive it. And it's like someone speaking in your head, or it's like that presence is in the room there with you. If you had the ability to create a hologram, it would appear to you like a hologram. It would appear to you, like Aleister Crowley said, in the darkness, and it would speak to you because you're now tapping into, galactic Google.
I get you.
In many ways, you're using an alien language, and that has become religiously significant to us. But really, those sigils, and they remind me of ruins, and the ruins are originally alien alphabet systems. You're literally, it's like how hieroglyphics were used instead of words. It's because
could we use the film Arrival with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner? A lot of people say that is a lot of alleged insider sources from the military-industrial complex have said off the record that film is really close to reality more than people think.
Yes, and that's exactly that's how they're going to start disclosing this information is through Hollywood industrial complex, the entertainment complex.
Right.
But you saw that the world's militaries were there. China was there. And it was, they worked together at the very end, and it was because of this language connecting. The difference was language. Remember, like they couldn't communicate between the Chinese and Americans. There's a universal language. There are universal wireless communication systems that don't need, it's surprising. It's like when you learn what's inside a radio is just copper wire and like some tuning and like a battery, right? And like most of the technologies for the display, you know, like the knobs and everything, that's for you to control it. It's a simple solid state interaction between energy and solid material to produce a sound, an intangible information delivery system, sound or picture, like cable TV, wireless TV, internet signal. Same thing. Exactly. Mankind is learning how to do that. And now we've built a society that's extremely afraid of that. We've built a society in the zoo, in our own lives and our own hearts, that rejects that immediately. A big part of the Great Disclosure is to make peace with this reality, to make peace with the fact that we are being visited by these intelligences, AI, that they've been here forever. And it's just been a dark age where we've not been communicating with them. Like, so we treated them like devils. We treated them like literally like evil.
Like demons. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's been through the dark ages, the people who want to keep the power. That's why the elite practice occult belief.
Yeah, to that exact point, it seems like Lou Elizondo, there's a couple people in that, you know, Tom DeLonge, the Academy to the Stars, they're treating these things like demons still, like evil things, like threats.
Yeah. There's even the allegedly Collins elite is a group within the military industrial complex, at least in the US, that believe regardless, no matter what these are, no matter how peaceful they seem to be, the whole thing is, you know, very Christian, follow the Bible. They're all demonic. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's what I said about, unfortunately, the Artemis Treaty has one almost invariable outcome. And that's what people know as the Battle of Armageddon or the apocalypse. And it's because we can, within the timelines given us, the next 100 years, that's not going to go away. So it needs to be corrected. And yeah, it's good. Like, that's of course sinister, corrected, right? But it's going to be because they're the ones going to draw first blood when the extraterrestrials land and represent themselves. Ironically, it's why the Greys have been volunteered to go and be the first race to show themselves, because they don't have souls. And the ones that do get killed by crazy Bible thumping fundamentalists, you know, can be easily replaced, because they will do things like suicide bomb the embassies to receive them. There'll be entire nations, millions of people's worth of radical fundamentalist Islamic armies like ISIS on steroids. You'll have everyone from white supremacists to the Nation of Islam firing automatic weapons at every single extraterrestrial or government vehicle they see. It'll be literally, when the extraterrestrials do appear, the end of days for
that's just
them.
Because they're so religiously fanatic, right? I guess is what we're saying.
Absolutely. And because, like I said, the alien language, it looks like a cult symbology. It looks like a cult symbolism. They can't hide that. That's the truth. So the Greys are going to come down and be like, here's our language. And the Christians or the Muslims or the Hebrews, the fundamentalist extremists, the orthodoxy, they're going to look at that and go, that's fucking demons. These are demon language.
Yeah, no matter, but that's what I mean. Like, no matter what, it's like, no. This is not like, we refuse to accept any of it. Like, but yeah.
When they see an Orion Draco elite with its wings and its horns and it looking like a dragon, they will immitely be like, that's the dragon. It's the great dragon, Satan. And that's the thing, like, no matter what.
Camden's going like this. He's going like this with his hand.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone can be skeptical as much as they want.
They're crazy. I mean, I'm not saying we are. I'm saying they are, for these perspectives, and I don't know how they can have them still. The same way the politically correct people say it's 2021. I mean, it's fucking 2021. Get over it.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, I'm on that side. I think that attitude is coming through on my end. I don't agree with these, and I see it as invariable. It's the great tragedy where I don't want these people to be hurt, but they are going to make it impossible to coexist, and that's going to be this great. Like, they're literally going to fulfill the prophecy that they've been trained to fulfill. They've been trained to reject truth. They've been trained to reject the galactic neighborhood. And it's going to be like, yeah, the majority of people aren't going to be on their side, but it will be the great world revolution. It'll be the great neighbor versus neighbor. It'll be the great time of struggle. It'll be with the 7 years of tribulation, where the blood runs higher than the horse's bridle, and it's man versus man. Exactly, and they're gonna, like, it literally says in the Book of Armageddon, the Book of Revelation, that they line up on 7 mountaintops to wage war with the heavenly host, and the host comes down and like destroys the armies of the evil one, the Antichrist, and that's them. They're gonna be fighting on the Antichrist side, and they're not even gonna know it. They're not even gonna know that the ignorance that they think is right is the evil that Christ is coming to destroy. And I have my own perspective on it. And yes, it is a religious idea of it, a spiritual aspect, as much as it is a scientific and material one. But yeah, like, that's when the Ashtar High Command come down. Yeah, when the Ashtar High Command come down, they'll come down as a shining war host and to fight in a battle and use their technology to annihilate the armies of the world that have been hijacked by ignorance and evil and the cabal and all these people. And the irony of it is that the people think they're doing God's work because they're extremists, and they don't have, in their ignorance, they're going to think that they're fighting
whatever. Yeah. So, brother, are evil. I just wanted to say, we've hit that 3-hour point. More importantly, though, our hard drive is going to hit the memory limit.
I don't want it to cut out and corrupt the file.
I just wanted to say it was a phenomenal time. I didn't mean to cut it so abruptly, but could you please tell the audience where they can find you, how they can find you, and we will definitely promote the episode when it comes out and all that good stuff.
No problem. And just for full disclosure, it's gonna be a dual cast. So yeah, I'll definitely link you guys to whenever I publish it. But yeah, all said and done, Beyond Top Secret Texan. Google it, DuckDuckGo it, whatever, search it. Linktree, so it's Linktree, Beyond Top Secret Texan, Instagram Beyond Top Secret Texan, TikTok Beyond Top Secret Texan, YouTube. All of it's Beyond Top Secret Texan. Search it out, find it. I operate on many platforms. If you find Instagram, you can go DM me and I'll give you the links and everything. I post them all the time in all my videos. Really support you guys. Thank you guys for your support, your following.
Thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for all this information. I mean, I don't think.
I know, right?
Look, taking a step back, when people open up this video and they look at how long it is, they're going to see, wow, this is very valuable. It's not always about how long an episode is, but the fact that you're giving valuable insight every second of the past 3 hours. I mean, that's phenomenal. There's not a lot of people that can do that.
Yeah, what I was saying earlier, it's that separates, that separates people who are just in it because they think it's neat, or they think it's weird.
Right.
People who really have something to say. And like I said, it's not like I'm searching for things. I could speak for another 3 hours or another 3 days or another 3 months about what just happened in literally the last couple of weeks. And they say, and by that time, the time's moving forward, new things are happening. And so if you guys want to stay, up to date and everything, follow me on YouTube, follow me on my podcast. My podcast, for everyone out there who is listening, is available everywhere, literally everywhere. Whatever your preferred sources, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Anchor, Podcast Addict, Breaker, Public Radio, whatever, right? Just fucking Google it. And it's
perfect.
And I say, if you can't find it, you're not looking for it. And I know I'm shadow banned and everything, but that's just
no. But I'm sure they'll be able to when if they do it the way you described it, 100%. But brother, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everyone who tuned in, whether it was audio or video. And we will catch all of you very soon. Cheers, everybody.